What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Cubs on Tap watch along. That's Kai. I am Ron Luce. We're back. I'm not alone tonight, not for the whole night at least. We're just getting things fired up here, getting started. We're starting actually on time for once, which big on us. Good job, Cubs on Tap. But we are here with a watch along in this one. I'm very excited to be back doing a watch along. It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I believe our last watch along was early June. Sounds about right. Maybe even late May. I mean, it's been a hot minute. It's been a hot minute, but it feels good to be back. We are back tonight, and I'm going to have a slew of co-hosts joining me here this evening. A couple of names I can confirm. A couple of names are still to be determined largely right now. We will have Bobby Foster joining us tonight. Very excited about that. You guys will get to meet Bobby Foster for the first time. He's been absolutely killing it on the writing side of the house for Cubs on Tap. When we get to talk to him and talk baseball, he's a big baseball fan in general. So I'm going to definitely ask him about his thoughts regarding just in general everything else going on. We got our friend from Dingers, Kevin Keneally here. Kevin, if you want to join in on this, my friend, message Mitch if you would like to jump on and talk with us as well, man. We're hoping to have some of the Dingers guys tonight. I sent Jake a message. Kevin would love to see you jump on as well. Mitch is going to join us, he has said, this evening at some point. So we'll get some Dingers crossover action. Very excited about that here as well. We should hear, I'm hoping, at some point tonight from Juice on Tap. Hoping at some point tonight from Mr. Tyler Edmonds if his day job schedule aligns properly, and then we also should hear from Mr. Joey Ricotta. Hashtag Where's Joey is hashtag found. He should be joining us a little bit later as well. So again, me starting this thing off here by my lonesome. Don't be afraid, because we are going to have more voices joining us over the course of the evening. Scott from Iowa. Confirm or deny reports Joey was traded to the Dingers for a player to be named later in cash considerations. The player to be named later might be Patrick Wisdom, Scott. I don't know. No, it's not Patrick Wisdom, but a hilarious trade. Maybe we have some trade deadline action going on and seeing where things can go. Kevin says, have the eyeballs on the youngsters. Oh, for sure. Well, then we appreciate you chatting it up. I want to hear from you guys. As you guys jump into the comment section, Kevin, Scott, and everybody else that continues to join us over the course of the night, sure, hit us right out the gate with your thoughts on the deadline. This is what tonight is all about, is what happened at this deadline? How are we feeling in regards to the deadline? You know, did the Cubs do enough? Should they have done more? I've seen a lot of conflicting thoughts and opinions throughout the course of Cubs fandom, I'll call it, for lack of a better term. There's a lot of people that are very upset with how this trade deadline went. And I think some of that feeling is very fair, I think, in a lot of ways, right? But I think there is a lot of, I guess, impatience, I think, amongst a lot of Cubs fans. And I know we've sat here and dealt with this. I have been just as miserable as everybody else. But I think a lot of people are forgetting that, like, it's really hard just to fix a team at a deadline, unless you're like a full-blown contending buyer and you're going for it. And even the contending deadline buyers didn't do a whole lot. I think the biggest move out of any of the contenders, truthfully, was like a Jack Flaherty going to the Dodgers at the last minute. Outside of that, though, you know, the Cubs arguably made one of the biggest moves at the deadline in getting Isaac Paredes. And we get to see his debut tonight, batting fifth behind Cody Bellinger in the lineup. Kevin with his deadline thoughts. He said he likes the moves we made, but I would have liked more to happen. But it takes two to tango. 100%. And I think that's the key. I saw a quote from Locked on Cubs from Jed Hoyer's press conference following the trade deadline. And that's what he said. He was like, we were expecting one more trade to happen, and everything just kind of fizzled out at the end. And I bet you there was a lot of trades that happened at the end that teams were just unsure about, and they just pivoted and quickly tried to make something happen. And that happens, right? I mean, when you're up against the deadline, you know, not everybody's 3 and 4 days out making moves like some of these teams did, right? Not everybody's the Yankees and going to get Jazz Chisholm right away. Like, that was their big acquisition. Sure, they added a Leiter Jr., obviously, who the Cubs traded for 2 prospects. We'll talk a little bit about that as well over the course of this watch along. But I think there's a lot of I think a lot of moves left on the table, right? We didn't get to see a Garrett Crochet move. The Blake Snell move never happened. The Jorge Soler move was a big surprise, but like no Blake Snell being traded when there was rumors that could possibly happen. There was, there were some pretty big Marlins names that ultimately weren't moved at the end of the day. I don't think Brian De La Cruz ended up being moved. Yandy Diaz ended up staying in Tampa. I think that's another move that we kind of missed out on as a fan, a Major League Baseball fan base, because he had some, absolutely just fascinating suitors between the Astros, who very much could use a first baseman, with Singleton being the guy, and Brady, who's obviously gone now. The Pirates, who everybody was waiting for them to make a bigger move than what they ended up doing. I mean, Kiner Falefa is not a bad player by any stretch of imagination. Their first pitch, we're underway. But, they probably left some offense on the table here when it's all said and done. So I think there was a lot still to be desired from this deadline. It was an entertaining deadline, to say the least. But I do think there's a lot of moves that didn't happen at this deadline. Remember when Vlad Guerrero Jr. was supposed to be traded at this deadline? Right? Remember when, some of these other guys were traded? The Blue Jays only moved on from Turner and Kiner Falefa. Like, that was the big moves that they made. And they were largely considered to be sellers, right? No Vlad Guerrero trade, no Bo Bichette trade. I do think there was some trades left on the table. And, it just kind of is what it is here. We're catering to the crew as well here, folks, for those at home that don't have the ability to maybe watch along with us. This is what we can do without getting sued by Marquee Sports Network. But Ian Happ flying out is how this game gets underway. Again, I will have a slew of co-hosts joining me here tonight. I am Ron Luce. The next one up should be Bobby Foster. He is the next face I am expecting to join us here in just a handful of minutes. And again, we'll have some other guys to go as well. And Scott says with an hour to go, 0 top 100 prospects were traded. I think that's the most fascinating part about this deadline, Scott. I'm glad you brought that up. Every trade that occurred from every franchise, for the most part, was a lot of like back end top 30 guys from those teams, right? The Cubs get the 22nd and 29th ranked prospects from the Yankees for Mark Leiter Jr. The other ones, in addition to that, coming through were teams like, there was a slew of other ones that were just like that. The Cubs moved 23rd and 29th ranked prospects to go get Nate Pearson. I think that's a great example as well. Like, that was largely what this deadline was. It wasn't a lot of big prospects being traded. Dylan Lesko from the Padres was probably one of the more notable prospects that got traded until Connor Norby got moved ultimately at this deadline by the Orioles as they went out to get some things. So you love to see it. Matt says, I'm lagging. The mic is breaking up. It could be Facebook. It could be my internet today. My internet has been special, to say the least, today. It's making for a really fun day for me because everything's really, really starting to piss me off. But ladies and gentlemen, making his Cubs on Tap debut, Mr. Bobby Foster. Hi.
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm going to hit you with the hard-hitting question right out the gate. Your thoughts on the trade deadline, really as a whole today, not just for the Cubs, as a whole. What do you think about today's trade deadline?
It was quite crazy. It was definitely a seller's market. That was obvious with the Trevor Rogers trade in Baltimore.
That trade was bonkers.
Yeah, especially, and also the Tanner Scott trade to the Padres. That was all.
What did the return on that trade end up being? Because that one I did not see earlier today.
That was I want to say the Padres gave up 3 of their top 5.
Oh, wow.
It was quite a haul for a relief pitcher. I can look that up right now.
That is a huge, huge, huge move.
They got 4 prospects, including 3 of their top 5, the Marlins did.
Wow. That's bonkers.
Yeah.
That is a good trade. Marlins had actually a very nice deadline too.
Oh, they certainly did.
They were to yoink probably one of your favorite prospects, being a Baltimore Orioles follower in Connor Norby. I mean, that's a heck of a return.
Yeah.
When it's said and done.
Yeah, they definitely had a gluttony of prospects to deal. So similar to the White Sox trade with Miguel Vargas, it's like the Dodgers have so many prospects that guys that don't have positions are going to have positions on other teams, just like Michael Busch did. So
yeah,
that's why I compare Vargas to Busch. That's like the White Sox version. So
yeah. I mean, he's going to get every opportunity to play shortstop every day, especially now that Paul DeJong gets to switch dugouts. At least he didn't have to walk very far.
Definitely.
He drew straight into the Royals. You got to like that for him. Now, Bobby, I need to know your thoughts, because I've seen so much over the course of just on X, on social media as a whole. Did the Cubs do enough at this deadline, or do you think they left a lot on the table?
Well, I thought they were going to. This has been the theme with the Cubs for a while for me. They start out with a bang, and then they just flounder. Because the Morel trade, in my opinion, needed to happen. You know, he's a bat that obviously is exciting. It's got talent there, but after a while, you need to prioritize defense with him. There's no position he can have on the field. There's no position in the outfield that he could possibly have right now. So that's what needed to be done. I liked the Leiter trade because, well, it's two prospects that you're getting for a guy that at one point you DFA'd and then re-signed as a spring training non-roster invite, and he continued his dominance the second go around. So I feel like any return on him is a good one. So yeah. And then there's a lot of players on this team that still should not be on here. Like, I don't know if the audience doesn't know, I like Patrick Wisdom, the guy. The player, I just don't see the fit on this roster, because when you have a bench, you want guys that are versatile, you want them fast, and you want them to hit for average. He does nothing of that. He's a good power hitter. He's someone I like to call a guy that you would put on a rebuilding roster after you've traded all your good players. So like in 2021 with Frank Schwindel. Perfect comparison, except Schwindel flamed out at the end.
Right.
They could have maybe recouped value on Wisdom, because I'd rather have that spot on the bench go to a guy in Iowa, get more at bats, like a Canario. He's younger. He can play the outfield. Even with Mastroboni, you can keep Mastroboni up, and Wisdom could have went today because he's versatile. He can play multiple positions. The bat is suspect, but what he lacks in his offense, he has versatility. So yeah, like a guy like Wisdom. I like Hector Neris, but given this team's direction, it's kind of there's no purpose of having Hector Neris the rest of the way. And for next year, he'll have a $9 million option vested, because he'll probably make the required number of appearances to vest that for next season.
It was 70 appearances, right, for him, I believe?
I thought it was 60, but let me check.
Maybe it is 60. That sounds about right.
Yeah, he's got that, and then I think he's got a certain amount where he finishes out a game. So like if he closes out a game, it counts as one. And that's a whole nother criteria that they
put a whole nother possibility for him.
Yeah, you'd figure like a team like the Yankees, you'd figure a team like the Padres, who are so desperate apparently for bullpen help, they would be floating all over him. But I could probably see why, given the financial restraints on Neris, which he's a good reliever. I liked the signing when they made it. I thought they needed somebody to add to the bullpen. You can't just keep going to the well for garbage dumping or garbage dumpster diving. I mean, they're good at it, but you need names. You need at least one or two guys that you can look to and say, that's a guy I want to pay money for.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that way too. Like, I definitely do think there are some names on this roster that, like, you're not getting any better necessarily with them still being here. Exactly. I fully agree with that. I think they took a step in that direction today with a guy like Miles Mastroboni going back down to Iowa. I think that's all fine and dandy with Ethan Roberts coming up and taking Mark Leiter Jr.'s place on the roster. I'm fine with stuff like that. But I very much agree with you. Like, I kind of did my own run through the 40-man at the end of the day today and was like, You can be fired into the sun. You can be fired
Yes,
into the sun. You can be fired into the sun.
exactly.
So there definitely are plenty of those guys, I think, still on this roster. I think the biggest, I'll call it, I guess, excitement for me is like, I feel like people were so ready for the Cubs to do so much today. And that's why everybody's disappointed,
Yeah.
forgetting that they made 2 moves over the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, and I know everybody's like, well, yeah, I know they got Isaac Paredes. Isaac Paredes was one of the hottest names at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's
Like, it's
something
not
they
like
had
they
to
just,
do.
yeah, it's not like they just went out and added a no-namer, at the end
Yeah.
of the day to say that they checked the box and made a move.
Yeah.
You went out and got a perennial third baseman who was an all-star this year.
Yep.
Something that none of your other bats on this roster can say that they were, right?
Yep.
He was an all-star. He hits for high contact. I know everybody dogs him because of the short porch in Tampa. Mind you, it's just in that corner. The rest of the field is exactly like everywhere else.
Yep.
Like, I think people are undervaluing what Paredes is. And I think a large part of that, though, is because Cubs, my one major critique of the Cubs fan base, and I myself have this, and this happens to me too. So I'm not trying to be a total hypocrite here. But the Cubs fan base as a whole has such an issue with like getting attached to players too quickly.
Exactly.
And they always have.
Exactly.
Like, I love Christopher Morel. I hope he's great in Tampa.
Yep.
I'm a closet Rays fan. I hope he's fantastic in Tampa. Like, that's my
Yeah.
AL team that I root for and I watch outside of the Cubs. But his 2 best defensive positions were second base and left field, and he was not playing either one of those as a Cub right now because
Yep.
Nico Horner's making $11.5 million to play one. Ian Happ's making $21 million a year to play the other. In addition to that, he was struggling, and I think a lot of that had to do with him trying to learn a new position, trying to make third base work, this, that, and the other, where, now he can go to Tampa and just play.
Yep.
And that might be the greatest thing for him. It might be the greatest thing for Paredes to come back in here now and hit in a lineup that's just performing better than even what the Rays were doing.
Exactly.
Like, you want to talk about a lineup that was underperforming. Go look at Tampa's lineup before the trade deadline. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly,
Paredes was the one consistent piece, maybe outside of a Yandy Diaz,
Yep.
that was consistent in that lineup, right? Randy
Yep.
Rosarena was having a rough season. Brandon Lau doesn't hit for a ton of average. He's a big power guy. Ahmed Rosario is a nice piece, but he wasn't playing every day. So they didn't have a ton of guys that were hitting for a good amount of average, could drive in runs, things like that. Paredes was largely one of the few guys on that roster that could do that.
Yep.
And you get him for a guy who, I don't know about you, Bobby. I know you're good at keeping receipts. And I learned this because I'm in a fantasy baseball league with you. I do, actually. But there's a lot of Cubs fans that were out here in the offseason pissing and moaning and saying that Christopher Morel needs to be moved to go get something better.
Yep.
I remember those.
Yep.
They're the same people that are bitching and moaning now that he was traded. The same people.
Exactly. Yep.
Like, I give Jed credit for going out and making a move to just improve a very key spot that they needed to improve.
Exactly.
And that was third base.
Yep.
Sure. Do they still need a catcher? Hell yes. But you checked one of the boxes. You went out and got a high upside arm in Nate Pearson, who I don't think people read scouting reports. He was the number 1 prospect in Toronto's system for like 3 years before he graduated to the major leagues. There's so much that people, I think, are just overlooking because I think people wanted Jed to almost sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. It was like the offseason where you had all these moves that you wanted them to make. You hired the manager, which to this day I still think was the right decision. I'm not nothing against David Ross. It's just he's not a guy I want moving forward if I'm going to start competing. I want the analytical thinker in Craig Counsell. But everyone's dogging on Craig Counsell this season because look at the roster. Milwaukee had some subpar rosters and they did stuff. But, it's hard to do stuff with a roster that's just so built poorly. There's no power. There's no one guy. There's not a Christian Yelich on this team that you can just put there and lead this franchise. But, it's just they got to move. They got to make guys available, even in the offseason. They got to move these guys out. They got to whatever they want to do when they cry poor. They want to save money. Well, if you're going to save money, save enough so that you can go out and get yourself a Pete Alonso or if the Yankees hopefully can move off of Juan Soto, if money's the name of the game. And yeah, like you said in the offseason, like with Christopher Morel, people didn't want to trade him. And there were these wild rumors, which I don't know the validity of them, but talking to the Padres about Juan Soto, and it's like, oh, well, they want Christopher Morel in a package. Fine. They just take I need a star on this team, and I agree wholeheartedly. It's just the one part of the fan base I don't like is just it's so sentimental for guys who just aren't stars. Like I got it with Rizzo and Bryant. I felt the same way.
Sure.
Rizzo is the one that hurt me the most in 21 when they did that massive sell-off. I did a little jig when they traded Baez because I was done with him. And when I saw they got Pete Crow Armstrong back, I was over the moon because I'm like, how did you do this? But yeah, it's just they left a lot to be desired. I mean, I know there's still an off season come up. They can still do that. But yeah, like guys like Wisdom, guys like Neris, guys like maybe Tyone. Tyone I'm indifferent on. I could see him sticking around. He could be that Kyle Hendricks type where the younger guys can lean on him and he's been effective besides last night. And yeah, I had no problems if they didn't want to move Tyone. I mean, he's a decent pitcher, but he's obviously not an ace. But he's a good guy to keep in the rotation.
I agree. And before we get, I want to talk to you a little more about Tyone because I think the whole Jameson Tyone fiasco is intriguing when it comes to this deadline. But one thing from Matthew a little bit earlier, he said Paredes reminds me of a Ramirez Ramirez back in 2003.
Yeah.
They didn't expect him to perform the same, but the position upgrade was great. Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
Quite frankly, like Paredes, like I think a lot of people look at Paredes because he's been in the majors for 5 seasons and go,
yeah,
he's old. No, he's not. He's the same age as Christopher Morel.
Exactly.
They were the same international free agency class with the Cubs.
Yep.
They were a part of that same group. I think a lot of people forget Paredes was a Cubs prospect that went to Detroit in 17 for the Justin Wilson, Alex Avila trade.
Yep.
And then ends up, going to Tampa for Austin Meadows, has 2.5 really good years in Tampa.
Yeah.
And I was back as a Cub. He's only 25.
Yeah.
He's not a free agent until he's 29.
Years of control, too.
Exactly.
So he's got up to 2027, I believe, is his final year of arbitration. So they got him for a while. And, the package they traded for him was really nothing. You got Morel, who you tried and failed. You said, all right, I'm going to wash my hands of this. We're done. Hunter Biggie, who's a 26-year-old reliever, which when they dump relievers, I'm not as sentimental because I know they can pump them out like a factory.
Yeah.
So that's not really a big loss. And then the third player was that prospect. He was like
Ty Johnson.
He was like a late round draft pick. So it's like if I can upgrade defensively, if I can get a bat that can actually hit for average sometimes, I'll take it. And a defensive upgrade at third. So
yeah, and I think with Paredes, the reason that he profiled so nicely in this Cubs lineup is because sure, maybe he's not the biggest power guy per se, and when he does hit for power, he's very much a pull guy, which is fine. Whatever, he hits home runs. I don't care. I don't care how you hit the home run, as long as you hit the ball over the fence. You know what I mean? They don't ask how; they ask how many.
Yeah.
But I think with him, he takes his walks. He puts together really good plate appearances. Not that Christopher Morel wasn't at times putting together really good plate appearances, because I think he was. But then you also saw the times that he was trying to swing for the fence, and
that's pretty much all he would do. It's just like every swing he wanted to hit it out of the ballpark. That was every swing, and you can't really do that with everything because they'll throw you off speed all day, and they're just going to be waiting for you to swing and miss. So, and it's like the Baez thing, except he had somewhat better plate control or discipline. Yeah.
Much better plate discipline than Baez ever did. Did you see the one the other day that they got him on where the catcher was literally in the other batter's box?
Yeah.
And just went like this to his pitcher and he swung through it.
I saw a tweet because he had like, I think it was like 2 or 3 games he had hit a home run back to back. And it was a tweet. It was like the Twins finally found out how to stop Javi Baez. And it was that exact pitch.
Just throw it way outside and let him swing at it.
I don't understand how you get paid all that money just to swing that terribly. And he was doing that with the Mets. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's almost amazing
Yeah.
that he didn't do it more with the Cubs. Like, it's
Yes.
just become such a problem now
Yeah.
that the fact that he didn't do it as much with the Cubs is certainly impressive. One more little off topic here for those that are watching along with us, and maybe aren't paying attention
Oh,
to football. DJ Moore
wow.
just got paid by the Chicago Bears, 4 years, $110 million extension.
About
He
time.
is still under contract for this season. Agreed. I'm very excited about
Yeah,
this. I
exactly.
believe 86 million's guaranteed. I haven't read the tweet. It's been a couple minutes since I read the Adam
Let
Schefter
me
tweet.
let me
So
take a
he's
look.
locked up. Bears got their number one receiver for the next few years. It's gonna be him and Odunze for the foreseeable future once Keenan Allen inevitably either moves on or hangs up the cleats as a wily veteran. But
Oh yeah, I expect Keenan Allen to be probably a one and done this year,
yeah,
given his
probably
contract situation. But yeah, he's got 110 million, and then 82.6 of that is guaranteed.
82.6. I knew there was an 8 and a 6 in there somewhere, and I
Yeah,
couldn't remember where. But
yeah,
you certainly love to see it.
exactly.
Bobby, going back to your point though about Jameson Tyone, I think the Jameson Tyone situation was fascinating because him pitching last night aside, because I know there's people that are irate at the fact that he pitched last night, God forbid.
Yeah,
I think with Tyone was to me was the case of the Cubs said they'd be willing to part with him
yeah,
to get an idea of what the market would be for him. Hey, what are you willing to pay? Like a team that you're very familiar with, right? Hey,
yep,
Baltimore, what are you willing to pay for Jameson Tyone? Are you willing to part ways with Heston Kierstad? Are
yeah,
you willing to part ways with him and Connor Norby? What is your feeling? And if the Orioles came back and said, no, we're not going to
yeah,
part ways with both of them, Jed doesn't have to trade him
exactly. Yeah,
because the beauty of a Jameson Tyone is even after last night and a little bit of a rough outing, he still has a 3.35 ERA.
yeah,
In today's day and age, for veterans that can pitch 100, if you really needed them to, 170 plus innings, a lot of them cost a hell of a lot more. Oh, and the Reds are scoring runs.
oh boy.
A lot of them are costing a hell of a lot more than $18 million a year,
Yeah,
which you have Tyone at for the next 2 seasons.
yep,
So you can dangle him out there now, and maybe sure you aren't able to move him or you don't get the return you want for him now. Who's to say you can't get that return for him in the offseason if you still really want to move him?
yeah. It's hypothetical, but I'm always of the mindset where I want to take advantage of teams right now because you got
Sure.
teams that are so desperate to actually make it, they'll be willing to do anything. Which, I mean, granted, it's within their right to accept or decline any trade that they see fit, but it was a seller's market. It's not like there wasn't anything that guys were getting sold at for nothing. I mean, you saw the Trevor Rogers trade, you saw the
Yeah.
Yusei Kikuchi trade to Houston. That was a haul. Maybe it was the financials that other teams were scared of. They didn't want to pay all that because I think he's still got another two more years on that contract.
Yeah, 2 more for Tyone.
Yeah, but maybe that was probably it because I think Kikuchi is probably a free agent this year or next year. I could be wrong.
I think he's a free agent at the end of this season.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of those teams are like, well, I can get the impact talent now, and I don't have to worry about later me wanting to pay him or not because then I can just let him walk and start all over again. These prospects were blocked. I have no use for them. Let me get someone who I can have but not have fully like a Tyone for another couple seasons. And
Yeah,
Even with Eric Fetty, it's like he's got another year on his contract. But St. Louis season, he's like, all right, we got guys in our rotation right now who are only like 1 year prove it deals, like Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn. So we can take on
right.
Eric Fetty for another season, have Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, and if they want to, bring back a Gibson or a Lynn. So gives them flexibility essentially. That's a lot with what I think was going on, even with the Cubs'
Mhm.
perspective. Everyone wants flexibility. Everyone wants to be able to dictate the player on their own terms. They don't want to get locked into a big money contract unless the team's going to pay down some of it. Like Jorge
Right.
Soler went to Atlanta, and I think the Giants were paying some of it, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think they're paying about $6 or $7 million. I
yeah, and
think.
he's got 2 more seasons after this. So, which
Yeah.
I get why the Giants did it. It's a whole nother thing. I don't think they should have done it because they don't really have any power. And if you're going to keep Blake Snell, I mean, you might as well hold on to a power bat. I wouldn't just dump him willy nilly.
Agreed.
Yeah, but going back to an earlier point, I
Sure.
don't know how valid this rumor is. It's from one of the hosts on Locked On Cubs. Not only did the Cubs make only one sell move, but I'm hearing that they targeted a controllable catcher as another buy-in move for 2025 plus. Something to follow up on this winter, as they still have all their top prospects remaining. This is from Matt Causey of Locked On Cubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that guy is Shea Langeliers. Like,
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Juice brought it up on our show on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And said that, like, that's the move. And you're going to go get a young catcher. Like, he was the guy that was supposedly available.
Yeah.
That made no sense, right? Like, because
Yep.
it's really hard to find catchers with control. And if you can go out and get that guy and maybe you do move a top 10, 15 guy,
Oh, yeah.
get that controllable asset at a key position like catcher. I think the Cubs were probably one of the more active teams at this deadline, and just the sense of like conversations had and
Yeah.
hires on moves. But to your point, Bobby, I'm so happy you brought that up too, because I think that's something that a lot of people are just like just overreacting to. Baltimore gives up 2 prospects for Trevor Rogers, right? Well, Trevor Rogers is making less than $500K
Yep.
in 2024 and has 2 years of arbitration yet. So, yeah, although Jameson Taillon has 2 years of team control because he's under contract, he's $18 million. That would have made him the most expensive starter on the Baltimore Orioles roster. Because even Corbin Burns is only making 15 this year.
And he can be a free agent after this season.
Exactly. So I get why they're willing to pay for the cost-effective version of that. And there's tons of other teams that did that. I'm sure that's why the Astros targeted a UC Kikuchi over a Jameson Taillon, because they're a team that has already been in the public eye of stating that they don't want to go too far over the luxury tax because they've already done it for so many years.
Yeah, and Baltimore, I mean, even before they got Trevor Rogers, they got Zach Eflin. And Zach Eflin right now is only making close to $4 million, but next year it'll probably go up to $18 million if Spot Tracks is correct on his contract.
Yeah, I think it's an option for him at 18.
No, 25 he'll get it, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 26. It doesn't say anything about options, so
there you go. Yeah.
I mean they kind of did their own version of Taillon with less years. So
yeah. So I'm right there with you. And for those that are able to watch along with the Cubs right now, Hoyer is speaking to the booth right now. He's in studio, it looks like.
Yeah.
Talking. Yeah. I have it on mute, so I can't hear it. But
the Kermit the Frog from Family Guy. Yeah.
I think too, Bobby, the one thing with the Cubs that I think really put them kind of against the wall with some of these quote unquote potential trades that just never happened.
Yeah.
They were all guys that were in the rumor mill that were expensive in the sense of physical dollars and cents, not necessarily so much in the sense of prospect. Get Let's Ball. Did that go? I think that's a home run.
Hopefully.
That's a double? Are we sure? I thought that hit the top of the wall. That looked like it hit the yellow. Can we review that, please? A Dansby homer would be very nice right now. Yeah, Flaherty's on the phone.
Good.
It looked like it got out, and it looked like it came back, and they didn't call it a homer. Yeah. But this should be a home run. Not a double. At least it looked like it to me. Oh, for those that are curious, Paredes flew out in his first at-bat as a Cub. Neither here nor there. Yeah, here's the replay. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that ball's out. That's a home run.
Yeah.
That's easy review. Solo shot, Dansby Swanson. It's 2-1.
Nice. Finally he does something,
Yeah.
That
needs to get moving.
That offseason with the 4 big shortstops, he wasn't my first choice, second choice, or maybe third choice, but I understand why they did it. They valued defense. I was in the camp. I wanted Correa. I was dead set. Give me a superstar. Give me that guy. I wanted Trey Turner. They didn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Bogarts, I can understand. given his age and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, Swanson's the guy they want to build around. I mean, he's not a star, but he should be the stepping stone to a star. He should be the 1A to whoever they're going to bring in.
Yeah,
But he shouldn't be the man.
agreed.
Yeah.
Like I think the Cubs have a lot of those guys, right? Like
Yep.
Ian Happ to me can be that guy. You know, once upon a time, I think Bellinger was a guy that could be that
Yep.
superstar. Obviously, he hasn't been that guy largely, but he's been a better version of himself, right, compared to those
Oh,
last
yeah.
3 years with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So it just, do
Oh, I
they
don't
really say that it's not a home run? How is it
Yeah.
not a home run?
It's this team and their luck, I swear. You know,
Are you shitting me?
this the amount of times that they have had calls like this, they have to have like 5 to 10 more wins on their record if those were actually called correctly.
I am appalled. That ball tucks behind the wall.
This team never fails for me. You know, it's just what can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Scott's right there with you. He says Swanson missing a dinger by an inch sums up the season. It really does.
Exactly.
It really does. That just seems to be this team right now. Bobby, I will ask you about another arm because I don't think enough people are talking about Nate Pearson, and I'm not so much worried about him for this season as much as I am for the next two. To me, he is a really nice high upside swing for the Cubs to take because of some of the pieces that are already in place, right? He has a really good fastball. He generates a lot of run value on his breaking pitches, despite not generating a lot of chase or anything like that. But I think to me, he's the perfect guy that this Cubs team puts in that pitch lab and says, hey, become an elite starter. Or pardon me, become either an elite closer or maybe a starter. I think he ultimately stays as a high leverage bullpen arm, which
absolutely.
Fine by me.
You know, I mean, earlier in his career, they wanted to have him as a starter. It obviously didn't work. His first season in 2020, I mean, his ERA was at 6. He was in 5 games, made 4 starts, and like you said, he was once a top prospect in their system, but he just for whatever reason couldn't turn things around. And similar to Julian Merriweather, I think Merriweather came from Toronto in a waiver claim. You know,
he sure did. Yep.
It's just I applaud them for going out and getting these type of guys. You know, the prospects they gave up were guys that obviously were going to be Rule 5 draft guys. So it's not like you lost anything. You didn't overpay for them. But yeah, I mean, I like the Pearson addition. You know, when it comes to bullpen arms, it's like they can't go wrong. You know, the guys that lead up to the 9th inning, they can find those guys at the drop of a hat. It's just finding an actual closer. They're just reluctant, or they want to just do it their own way. You know, I mean, I like Alzolay. I thought he would actually be something, but he just went south in a hurry. I wouldn't ever give him the job back. He's permanently lost it to me. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think best case scenario, Alzolay becomes at least like a high leverage 7th guy.
Yeah.
You know, but he, like you said, I mean, he largely showed that the closing role. Maybe it was just it just worked at the time, right? Like guys go on hot runs. It happens in sports all the time. You know, it really feels like that was what that 123 run was for him late.
I just think a lot of these guys going back to last year, that second half, it was okay. We're in distance of a postseason spot. We didn't add much at the deadline. We got Candelario and Quas, but we're this close. We don't really have anybody else, so we're going to overwork our best bullpen arms pretty much every day of the season and try and make it to the postseason. Then they failed, and then once you saw this season begin, you saw Merriweather go down, you saw Alzolay become horrible and then go down, and then even Leiter. Leiter was good last year. He was somewhat good this year, but even this year he's had his faults. So it's pretty much them taxing their most consistent guys from last season, and it's come back to bite them. Which, if you had a season like that where you were that close to a postseason spot, you should have looked at your roster and said, okay, we overworked these guys to death, and we're going to need to add more to this bullpen to sort of cushion the blow, give them less appearances to start the season, kind of coddle them so that they don't blow out their arms. And I mean, Hector Neris, good signing. Yency Almonte, okay. I mean, he kind of seemed like a throw-in that trade. because I feel like Bush was the guy they wanted all along, which at the time I saw that and I was a big fan of Jackson Ferris. I thought, well, I don't know about this. I mean, when it comes to offensive bats, they're not really that good at finding diamonds in the rough like they are bullpen arms. But I mean, Bush is made a believer in me. I mean, I wouldn't. He's been decent at first base, but I don't know. I just for the future, I can't look at him and say that's my first baseman for the future. He's a good bat. He plays good defense. I don't know about first base going forward forever.
I think that's the thing with Bush. Like I think because he has positional versatility, if they ended up moving off of Nico Horner and if they didn't think Matt Shaw or Triantos or any of these guys were ready to come up and assume that position right away, I wouldn't be mad about Michael Bush playing second base.
Oh, exactly. I'd give him much more of a run at second, like they gave Morel at third. I mean, he's got a good bat that you keep in the lineup. For first baseman, I'm just standard and traditional. I want a tall guy, left-handed, like a Rizzo. I want a thumper. I want a Rizzo. That's what a first baseman is.
You want a thumper. You know what? And I get that, though. I think to me, the one trade the Cubs could have went out and did at this deadline, and again, a lot of the big stars that people thought were going to get dealt at this deadline didn't get traded.
Yep.
Right? Lou Bob stayed with the White Sox. Crochet stayed with the White Sox.
Yep.
Bo Bichette's still a Blue Jay.
Vlad's
the other guy that would have been really cool to see would have been Vlad.
Yeah, Vlad.
Like if the Cubs wanted to get really, really crazy and say, let's fuck around and do something. Oh boy.
Yep, 4-0 now.
Yeah, Santiago Espinal. Speaking of a former Blue Jay.
Yeah, Santiago. I'll trade you Steele, by the way. He's having a pretty rough start.
Yeah, now you're gonna finally trade me.
Yeah, I'll trade you Steele. I'm a nice guy.
So for reference, for those that are curious as to what we're referencing here. So Bobby and I are two separate fantasy baseball leagues together. One of which you are the commissioner for.
Yep.
One of which, ironically, I am the commissioner for. And it literally came down to we needed an extra person, and toward the end, we both asked each other. It worked out. Bobby's league, I'm absolutely getting just crushed because that happens to me. I've learned that. My first year in a new league, I never do well because I'm learning the scoring. I'm learning what ways to generate value. Like I play also in a league with, hopefully you'll get to meet some of these guys here tonight.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Dingers guys. Actually, Scott from Iowa plays in this league with us as well now.
Okay.
Jake Budnowski, our friend over at the Dingers podcast, he's the commissioner. And the first year I played in it, I didn't draft enough pitching. And pitching in that league is like how you win games. Like it's just flat out. It's just how you win.
Yeah, I've slowly realized that.
And so the first year I had a great lineup, but like I couldn't pitch and I was terrible. I was like, for most of the season, I was the worst team. I think I finished third worst at the end because my team started to heat up late.
Yeah.
The next year, I said, okay, I value pitching, still value hitting, but I need to go out and get those big gun starters, a couple of good bullpen relievers. Made it all the way to the championship game. We lost.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, we made it to the playoffs and we lost in the first round, which was tragic. But I had, I think, the best record or second best record going into the playoffs. This year, I'm in a playoff spot, and I've learned my way now to stay at the top of the league. So
it's bizarre. It's bizarre in both of these leagues. I have the exact same record. I think I'm 13-4
in both leagues.
I just magic touch. I first started fantasy in about 2018 because obviously fantasy football reigns supreme. Learned how to play it in 2018 from a good friend of mine who we have the same league in. He taught me the ins and outs of the league, scoring and all that. I'm like, all right. And every season in fantasy football, I made the postseason. So some years some years I walked in backwards to a 6th seed. COVID year was my best year. I drafted Cooper Kupp. That was the year he broke out.
Yeah.
I had Cooper Kupp. I had Jonathan Taylor on my roster. I had Mahomes. I was cooking. I had like a 7 or 8 winning streak. So I was like 7-8-0.
There you go.
This one guy I was with, we were just basically like back and forth who was going to lose first. And I think I lost first, and then he lost the following week. So, and then the playoffs roll around. You know, I'm like the Kyle Shanahan of fantasy football playoffs. I get so far, and then it's like something always comes back to bite me, whether it's a defense or it's a kicker. You know, it just
something.
Yeah.
I feel
well,
that.
I'm Kyle Shanahan or I'm Marvin Lewis. Who knows?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. It's funny. I've had my fair share of heartbreak in fantasy football over the course of a long time. Specifically last year. There's a league I play in with like my cousins and like their cousins on the other side of their family, and like it's an all family league.
Yeah.
And the year prior, it was the first year I'd missed the playoffs. This will be I think this is year 6 coming up now.
Okay.
Year 6 or year 7 that we've done this. And like the first 4 or 5 years, I made the playoffs every single year. And this was a 10 and then a 12 team league with just 4 playoff spots. So it was top 4 consistently. Had one down year finally.
Yeah.
Like I'm on a revenge tour. Well, I was the best record in the league for the whole year. I was dominant. I outscored the next highest team by like 500 points in this league. Dominance. And then I lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there.
Just tragically disappointed. Because this was a league I had like some personal vendettas to address.
Yep.
And I got so close yet so far. So now we come back on another year now where I'm like, I have, some things to prove in this league. And I'm certainly ready for it. Well, what do you think's going on with Justin in these early giving up all these runs? Because he settles in then. He did it in his last start too. But
I have no idea. It's just when you come to Cincinnati, it's like Coors Field East. Just balls jumping.
I hate Cincinnati. Well, I'll take that Jonathan India run scored though. That's good for the fantasy team.
Yeah, I traded you India and Crochet, and I got Chris Sale.
Yes, you did.
That was a good trade on my end.
Yeah, it was. Especially because like Crochet, I don't think has pitched over 5 innings since you traded him to me.
Yeah, art of the deal.
Yeah. You've gotten me a couple times this year, my friend. You've gotten me a couple times this year.
Yeah.
What was the other trade we made early in the season that you got me on? The Cronenworth trade. That's the other one. That one still stings.
And I just flipped him. I got Paredes. That was who I brought in the Paredes trade. I did not want to trade Cronenworth. I didn't want to part with him, but the guy said, it's either it's Cronenworth and Arenado for Paredes, and I'll give you Adolis for fun. I said, all right. I need an outfielder. Mookie's hurt, and Bellinger was hurt at the time, so I'm like, all right.
I feel that. Well, I will say you did me a large favor though in this league for a lot of time now, because I had multiple people approach me about Bryce Harper. You would condition me to just tell them no.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this league. They want to throw stones at glass houses. I'm the one that makes bad trades, but they're the ones out there fleecing people.
Yeah. So I stayed away from giving away Bryce Harper, but
you never want to give up your superstar unless they're going to give you a superstar of their own. That's my word.
That's a well put word indeed. I will say though, Jonathan D has been quite good for me because Abraham Toro got hurt. So
he's a nice stick.
It's worked out fine. I mean, I wasn't going to make the playoffs anyway, but at least I'm like kind of hanging around after starting 0-6. So
yeah, you can play spoiler. That's what I tell everyone. It's like, oh, why am I going to try? Well, you can play spoiler. If you don't like someone in the league, make their day a rainy day.
I feel that. Speaking, Bobby, of people that have beaten me in the fantasy baseball playoffs and ruined my hopes, this guy right here did it right last year.
Oh boy,
Mitch, how are you? Sir?
It's doing great. Good to talk to you. Doing great. It's been a great summer. Not so much on the Cubs front, but life's been good. Life's been good.
Good, man. Well, it's good to see you again. It's been a long time since we've gotten a chit chat. We're glad you're able to hop on here with us tonight, and we're getting some diversity on the Cubs on Tap watch alongs. I blame our usual conglomerate. Not that the results are going to look any better tonight. Mitch, we have one win as a Cubs on Tap watch along this season. One singular freaking win, and it was the play at the plate against the Mets in New York to end the game. That was the one game. So we were this close to being over right now, and it's not looking good given how today's game.
It's not looking good tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, the averages aren't in your favor anyway when watching the Cubs. So, I mean, most of the time when I tune in to watch the Cubs, they lose anyway. So it's just one of those things this year.
I feel that. I think I have actually not – I've been away from the Cubs games, and they've won more games than lost, and then vice versa when I actually do tune in. So I do feel like I'm part of the problem, but like I try my best to distance, and I'm superstitious enough where I'll do it for sake of the benefit of the Cubs. But Mitch, I mean, at least with today's watch along, there's more to talk about. It's not just a random Tuesday. There's plenty to talk about. I asked Bobby this question as soon as he jumped on. We've been asking people to drop their thoughts in the comments as well. But your thoughts consolidated on the deadline as a whole at the Major League Baseball level, and then as well from a Cubs standpoint here with the deadline coming and going.
I mean, as a whole, trade deadline is always fun. Like, it's always fun to see how teams maneuver and try to get better. The crazy thing is that in years past, like growing up, it was always a sell-off or a buy. It was either one or the other. And now we're getting so many teams, I think, because of the added wild card, where it's like these play for next year type trades that are going to benefit a little bit this year, kind of exactly what the Cubs did. The Reds did the exact same thing. Like, there's so many of those teams that are like, if we catch lightning in a bottle, we could still make the playoffs. Like, that's not out of the question. 5 games back, crazier things have happened. Like, but at the same time, it's just weird. So, like, yeah, it was fun to watch teams see how they play it out and see what moves they make. Like, it was fun to see the Yankees with Jazz Chisholm. I'm not a huge Jazz Chisholm fan as a player, but he plays well in Yankee Stadium. And so that's going to be fun to watch and see how it plays out. It's interesting. It's crazy that the NL Central as a whole didn't do a whole lot. Like, the upper teams didn't get crazy amount better. Like you thought, if I was the Cardinals and I was that close, I would have made a big move to try to improve my team.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of crazy. As far as the Cubs, I'm kind of like, meh. Like, I like what they did with Isaac Paredes. I'm one that's like all for. I think that was a great move. Pearson, we'll see. Like, he's going to be one that, like, I love the upside. I love the potential. He could be a guy down there in the 8th inning, but you never know. It's going to be this, like last night. It could be one of those where this goes extremely bad. 2 pitches and 1 home run, 1 hit by pitch. The trade today, it's like, get the value for a lighter that you can. And I like the Neely, getting Neely from the Yankees. I think that's huge. He's one that can be in the minors.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, he is a big dude. But he's one that he's one that you can put in the minors for a couple weeks and bring up and ride him out the rest of the season, see how he does. So yeah, I like it. Should they have done more? Maybe. Like, should they have traded a Jameson Taillon? Should they have traded maybe Nico? Could they have got value at where they're at now? Probably. But I'm one that's like, takes two people to a tango. Takes 2 teams to make a trade. If they aren't valuing your players, or if Jed's overvaluing, or if just the right trade isn't available, then yeah, like, Jed's in control right now with all those moves, because you could roll the dice with Taillon next year. You still have a good starting 5. So,
right.
I mean,
I hear that. I feel in that too. I think Bobby and I largely feel in the same way. Like, yeah, you could have done more, but there's also one thing to just give a guy away to give a guy away, right?
Yeah.
If the value's
Yep.
there, it's one thing. The
Yep.
value's not there, especially when you got 2 more years of Nico Horner, you have 2 more years of Jameson Taillon. If the value's not there, the value's not there. I will say this was an earlier comment, Mitch. I can tell that you two are on the same microphones often together because when you said it takes 2 to tango, this comment immediately hit my brain because I was like, oh,
Yep.
yeah, it's the Digger.
Oh,
factor.
That's what's funny. That's what's funny right now with us is like you have like me and Kevin who are thinking the same, and you have Ian and Jake who are like total opposite thinking of the deadline. They think Jed is doing a horrible job and like just totally opposite, which that's great. It's great to not always have a podcast where all minds are thinking the same and some are frustrated. So it's good. But like, I mean, I'm one that like I like the moves, but we had this conversation through text of how much stock do you put in that this is Jed's fault versus player's fault, or that he's given away too many contracts that are over what the value of the player is, and the player not living up to their contract. And he's one that he wants to put blame on Jed, that he overvalued the player. He shouldn't have signed him in the first place. And I'm one that's like, well, the player, like Dansby, for instance, like at the time when we signed Dansby, that was his value. The thing is, Dansby hasn't lived up to that value. So the blame shouldn't be on Jed. It should be on Dansby because he hasn't lived up to that contract. He got his bag, and then he hasn't done what he should lived up to. Where he's saying he thinks that it should be more value on Jed, because Jed's job is to evaluate players and see how they're going to play out in the future, and he evaluated them wrong.
I think it's a mix, right? Like, to me, it's a mix because I think in the instance, I feel like with the Nico contract, for example, I think he definitely overpaid Nico for the value. I think they were projecting what he could be instead of saying this is what you have been.
And I think he felt pressure from the fans to make that Ian's
100%. 100%. I absolutely think that's part of the problem. And again, this goes back to what Bobby and I were talking about, because I said this to Bobby a little bit earlier, and I know Bobby's going to laugh because I get to say it twice. The Chicago Cubs fan base has an irrational love for players no matter what.
Yes.
Like almost, it's almost toxic because you get upset then if Nico Horner doesn't get an extension after 9 home runs and a 270 batting average.
Yep.
And then he gets overpaid. And then now everybody's bitching and moaning and saying, well, Nico should be traded. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's the same people that during the offseason were calling for Christopher Morel to be traded because he had no position, just to get pissed when they addressed the position he was playing with the Paredes trade.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, man. And I know Christopher Morel just went deep. I just watched the highlight. He hit a 420-foot bomb to dead center. And like Scott said, he's batting out of the 3-hole. They just want him to swing hard, and they don't care.
Yeah.
But I think in his case, though, to add to Scott's point, and Bobby, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I love when we get to just connect all the dots. His 2 best positions were second base and left field. Like,
what's he playing tonight? Is he at second?
Yeah,
he's at second. Is I believe where he's playing tonight. So the same fans that are pissed that Morel got traded are the same fans that wanted Jed to pay Nico and Ian Happ, who, spoiler alert, play the same positions that Christopher Morel's good at. Like, something had to give, and they did it, and it is what it is. So I do think there is some of it with the fan base, and I do think, and I think, though, in fairness with Ian Happ, like, Ian Happ leads this team in RBIs. I'm a little less disappointed about him making $21 million a year to lead this team in RBIs. Now, there's a Seiya Suzuki who has not played a very good defensive right field this year, who has come around with the bat. He's probably one of the better Cubs bats over recent. He's just polarizingly irritating, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But he's making $20 million. So it's like, where do you go from here? Who's to say what? And there's so much just like, I don't know. It really does feel like it's a little bit of a clusterfuck, if I'm
Yes.
being brutally truthful, because this team is so just like out of whack, I think, as a roster right now. That, and unfortunately, and Bobby, I know you're going to agree with me with this too, because this is something that is fantasy football talk too, or fantasy baseball talk. They can't fix everything at the deadline. I think there's so many fans out there that wanted them to go out and fix everything, and that's just not humanly possible.
Oh,
It's not
absolutely. I
humanly
mean, it takes like Mitch said, it takes two to tango. You got to have all these. You want all these moves, and like the rumor that I had saw about the cost controlling catcher. Obviously, you didn't have enough time to make it. But yeah, it's like for now, you're just going to have to play with the hands that you were dealt. You got this roster that's a clusterfuck. You got a roster that's just out of whack. You got a bunch of guys. You don't have the guy. I mean, it's like it's like a Saturday Night Live cast without Belushi or Chase, and it's just a bunch of the mid players. I hearkened Ian Happ. I like Ian Happ as a player, but like I look at him and I'm like, he's the Zach LaVine of this team. He's decent, but it's like he's not going to get you over the hump, and you're paying him what the market was dictating for him at the time. So
Right.
you're kind of stuck with him for now.
And I think too with Hap, what he got
Yeah.
paid, right?
Yeah.
And even last year, like yes, he regressed a little bit in average, but his slug went up. He hit for more power. He hit for about largely the same number of RBIs, and he had more doubles. So he had a little less doubles, but increased the power in terms of home runs. So everybody was like, okay, that's great. Like he's getting paid $20 million. That's fine. And everybody's like, well, no, he's not doing it. And it's like, yeah, but he's still a 770 OPS guy who was almost at 800 like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The only other player over 800 on this roster now that Seiya Suzuki has bumped his way back up there, but was Michael Busch. Like that's just the name of this roster right now. It's mind-boggling. But I don't know. I thought the deadline was interesting, just in the sense of like the Cubs just didn't have any pieces that they could trade that like everybody could be fans of. And what I mean by that is like there are so many teams in baseball that are under cost constriction.
Yeah. And I
hearken taking Jameson Tyone for $18 million a year.
I hearken this roster to a Rick Hahn quote. They were mired in mediocrity. They have a lot of guys who are okay, but on the open market, not a lot of teams are going to be like, hey, I need that guy. That guy's going to put me over the hump. So they're kind of at a standstill with a lot of these guys. Like Morel, I didn't even think they were going to trade Morel. The Paredes deal obviously came out of left field, so to speak, which I was in favor for. I'm like, if you could do that, do it. But other than that, it's like not a lot of these guys. No one's beating down the door for Suzuki. No one's beating down the door for Happ. Horner, maybe. I don't know how true those rumblings were, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We had a whole episode that talked about that the Cubs are a bunch of C-listers and we don't have an A-list star.
Yep.
And the sad thing is we have a whole bunch of C-listers that if they played up to C-list material, they could still make the playoffs, but they played like D-listers this year.
Yep.
And so the movie tanked and we were way over budget. And
it was the next episode of Sharknado and it just flopped at the box office. No, and you're right, Mitch. Like you guys are 100% correct. I know there's so many people that want to sit here and dog Jed, and I think there's plenty of opportunities to dog him. Like
I've
in the comment section as
this entire first half I've been dogging Jed. I've been like,
sure.
why are you continuing to play some of these guys who don't deserve a roster spot, who can easily go back down to Iowa, and they've got guys in Iowa like Canario who they refuse to give multiple looks to. They'll bring them up, but then like 3 days later after an at bat, they'll be like, all right, we're done. We need more Patrick Wisdom. We need more Miles Mastroboni, not Luis Vasquez or Alexander Canario. That would always just infuriate me. It's like, obviously, it's not working. So try something different with the guy you're going to promote.
Oh, 100%. And I think that, for those reasons, right? Like the Jed dogging is very fair.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I know everybody loved Christopher Morel, but let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
199 batting average ain't gonna get it done.
You got a lot of guys on on this roster who just they can hit for power, and then they got batting averages that are less than their weight.
And you have
Right.
to remember that when they called Christopher Morel up, they called him up from Double-A.
Yeah,
Right.
Like that was kind of a surprising call up.
yeah,
They at least identified talent early and got him up early, but people
Yeah.
forget that Jed was the one who made that call, but it just didn't pan out. He didn't progress the way that they wanted, and he didn't have a position to play.
I truly believe with Morel, the biggest reason why he didn't pan out is because of trying to learn a totally foreign position to him. Because even when he was in the minors, like I know everybody's like, well, he was a third baseman. If you look at his numbers, he didn't play a lot of third base. He played up the middle. Like that's where his athleticism.
And he
shined.
didn't when he did play third in the minors, he didn't play it well.
No, no.
I remember watching him at Iowa and having 2 errors at third base, and you're like,
Oof.
You're like, but he can hit a tank about 440, which is awesome. But like, again, I think in the Cubs case, like I know a lot of people are upset, and trust me, I love Morel too. There's another jersey hanging in my closet next to me right here that now is obsolete because of Morel being traded. So trust me, I feel the pain. But at the end of the day, you're paying 2 guys a collective $32 million a year for the 2 positions he played the best defensively. So where else are you going to put him? I think he's going to be able to go down to Tampa now, though, and truly just work on progressing as a complete hitter because now he's playing positions he's comfortable playing. Like he's going to play second base because Brandon Lau's not that good of a second baseman, and they really don't have anybody else right now. And then when he needs to, he can go play left field because Randy Arozarena just got moved to Seattle. So the 2 positions he plays well, the Rays are just like, we just kind of going to throw anybody out there right now.
And the Rays are shirt up at third base for a long time because they just called up there. So that's their future third baseman. So he doesn't even have to worry about playing third ever again.
Nope. Yeah, Junior Caminero is gonna take care of third just fine for the Rays. Not too worried about that there whatsoever. So again, like that's another team that I think when we're looking at MLB as a whole, like the Florida teams actually had a very nice trade deadline.
Oh yeah,
Miami had some really nice prospects. Now, granted, can they make them work? Yeah, we'll see. But Tampa continues to Tampa. They move Paredes, they move Arozarena, they move Eflin, they move Adam.
really surprised they didn't move Fairbanks. I was really surprised at that.
I am too, because to me, he was the best reliever they could have moved.
Oh, yeah.
Fairbanks.
Yeah.
I mean, for them not to move him is absolutely bonkers. But
yeah,
I don't know. Man.
They reloaded with major league talent. Like they
did.
filled in every position that they got rid of with talent that can help them next year. Like they did a better job of what Jed was supposed to do.
What Jed was trying to do, they did even better than what Jed did. And I will say though, I did see, and I forget where I saw this exact quote, but Tampa can do that because of the market they're in. Like you can sell off a bunch of stars and not have the fan base hit you with a 180 because of where you play and because you're a small market team, quote unquote, and you operate on a small budget. The fans are used to this. Like there's only ever one real like franchise player in Tampa at a time, right? It was in the early days, it was Carl Crawford. Then it became Evan Longoria, then it became Kevin Kiermaier, and it was supposed to be Wander Franco until he started dating underage women and doing all the stupid shit that he decided to do. But that's just how that team operates. They have one star, like one true superstar that's the face of the franchise. And then everybody else they fit in, they build value, and then when they're hitting their peak, they say bye-bye, and they sell them off.
and even even Wander was an exception because of that contract they gave him.
Yeah.
You never see an extension in Tampa Bay, really.
No, never.
And
Absolutely
the
never.
one time they do it, it blows up in their face.
It sure did. And I bet you they're never going to do it ever again. And, and in their case, like they just got Jeffrey Springs back too, finally, after he comes back from injury. So like they can do that. But like if any GM, let alone Jed Hoyer or Carter Hawkins or any of us, even hell, if any of the 3 of us were GM of the Chicago Cubs, if they did that in this market, the Cubs fans would freak the fuck out. Absolutely freak the fuck out. Like if we walked out of this deadline and like Horner, Happ, Suzuki, Bellinger and like Justin Steele got traded, the fan base would have a collective stroke. Let's just call it what it is. Like that's what it would be. They would lose their minds, and it's just so like everybody's like, well, oh, look at what the Rays did. They can turn things over, yeah, because they physically have to because of cash. The Cubs aren't that way, and I think Mitch, I love the point you brought up, and it's gonna be stuck in my head now. And like I'm sitting here looking at Wrigley Field, like the vision I have of it sitting in left field. I'm going. It's all your fault to everybody in the stands, because Jed feels the pressure from you guys to keep these fan favorites who I love them as people. I know they're good dudes. They're solid baseball players, but they're not cornerstones. They are not cornerstones. Like Nico Horner is not a cornerstone. We talked about it on the Cubs on Tap probably at least a month ago, maybe. And Joey brought it up. And it gave me legitimate acid reflux when he said, is Nico Horner just the next version of Darwin Barney? And I was like, oh, don't say that. But he could be. He legitimately could be. But think about it.
He's Ryan Theriot light.
Yes.
Yeah. Even Ryan Theriot hit dingers.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Theriot.
Nico has no power. Nico hits doubles, which is cool.
Yeah.
We love doubles. Doubles are fine. Until the three guys behind you strike out and you don't score. But doubles are great. But he's a Gold Glove second baseman who the Cubs clearly didn't think he was good enough to keep it short. Otherwise, they wouldn't have felt the need to go get Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
So like I've seen a lot of people. I was talking to a good friend of the program, John Brooks, the other day. I ran into him at Murphy's before the most recent Cubs game I was at. And he was like, well, what would you think about like Nico? He's traded playing short for another team. I was like, he's not playing short. He's playing second. And I was like, unless they're in an absolute pinch and they need him to play short. And I said, because if he wasn't good enough to stay at short with this Cubs team, he's not good to stay at short anywhere, in my humble opinion. And that's just nature. Yeah, well, Paul DeYoung was starting at shortstop. So like Nicky Lopez and Lennon Sosa were getting regular. I mean, good for Miguel Vargas. That dude's gonna go. That dude's got shortstop every day for the rest of the season on the South Side. He has nothing to worry about. Like he is the only shortstop on that roster right now. But it really is a fair question of just like, how do you balance the weight of this team from the fan base side plus the value side? Like, I'm not giving Jed a pass because I think Jed's been around long enough that he should know what the hell he's doing. But like, at what point does Jed finally just say, I really don't give a fuck if I get booed at CubsCon? I'm going to do what I think is truly right for this baseball team and not just give to the peer pressure of the fans. Because I'm not so mad about the half contract personally as I am about the fact you're paying Nico Horner 8 figures to not hit more than 10 homers and hit like 250. And he's not even stealing bags this year. He stole 43 bases a year ago. He's got 16 right now. It feels like a mess.
That's where, like, okay, looking at going forward, we talked about they need a star. Like, I'm thinking that Jed's going to do a big blockbuster trade. I think he's at the point now where he feels a little pressure on himself and his job to like, I need to get us into playoffs because haven't done it yet. There's going to be something this winter, and I actually like winter deals a lot better than trade deadline deals. And so the thing that you have to kind of like play out is what positions are available to go and attack and get a big name guy, because you need star power and you need slug, and usually those guys are the same guy. But the only positions you really have on this current roster is right field if you move Seiya to DH in the catching position. There's not a lot of star available at catcher, so then you're looking really at right field. And that's where I was thinking that he was going to make the Jason Dominguez deal. When that first came out, I was like, that seems like a legit, like, we need a star. He could be a star of the future. Let's go get that, play right field, move Santa DH. Kind of solves a lot of problems. But I'm expecting this summer or this winter that there's going to be a big blockbuster, and maybe he throws in an Ian Happ or throws in somebody else, Nico Horner, and somebody gets thrown in a deal that surprises a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only way we're going to get a star here is through a trade. I don't see in the next couple years a free agent that's available that will come here signing at the level of like a Juan Soto or a Shohei or like somebody that's going to like, it's really going to change your lineup.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be done through trade.
And I think especially too in Jed's case, like now truly feels like the time where you say, okay, my ass is on the hot seat because my contract is up at the end of 2025. Go take that shot because you kind of have nothing to lose, right? You built, like, it's great you built this farm, but like if you're not here to see the farm to fruition, what does it matter?
For better than a lack of term, go AJ Preller on this thing. Balls to the wall. Just like you said, I got one more year on my deal. I'm not going to see the fruits of this labor if I'm canned after the end of the season. Just go balls to the wall. My thing is like when we were talking earlier about Bush. If you're going to include Horner in a mega deal in the winter, try Bush at second and go get the polar bear. Go get Pete Alonso.
I don't think they will move Bush off first because now that they've signed third, the only spot for Matt Shaw is second.
Yeah,
and so I think Matt Shaw has too much upside and he's a better version of Horner because he has power. And so that's going to be where Matt Shaw fits in. And so, that's it. Kind of just like you got to kind of like fit the pieces. You have Owen Casey coming. Owen Casey going to fit in this outfield?
Yep.
Could he fit over where Ian Happ is gone? Like you got to kind of play those cards. Yeah. You got the Jaguar coming up. You got so you got to kind of play that. But the thing is, I'm saying these names, and the one thing that we walk away this trade deadline is that we still have all of our assets.
Yeah.
This winter deal with one of those guys if we need to. We have Matt Shaw that makes James Triantos, who has a ton of upside, expendable to be able to trade because you got Paredes over at third. Like you have things now you can move.
Yeah. I definitely agree. A couple of quick comments here because there have been some good ones. Scott said this a little bit earlier. Just figured out Jed's fatal flaw. He overvalues defense and strikeouts and dismisses slug. Morel and Kyle both, quote unquote, didn't have a position. Following that up was Darren saying he never understood why Jed wouldn't entertain the serious offers from the Yankees after the World Series on Kyle. Well, obviously, that would have been Theo as well, only to let him walk the next year. Yeah, that was certainly a fatal mistake in hindsight by the Cubs. But speaking of these trades and moving guys away and moving off guys, I tend to agree, Mitch. Like I think the only way the Cubs do get a true star is via a trade. Just because I don't see them spending the money to go get a Juan Soto, right? I mean, he's going to command at least $400 million, probably, if not more.
And I don't think any stars, like we've talked about this, where like Ian on our show believes that Jed is not a very good negotiator with stars, and it's really hard for stars to want to come here and play. He doesn't think that relationship. I don't know, and I can see that. Like we don't see a lot of stars besides Dansby over the last how many years jump at the opportunity to come play for Chicago.
Yeah.
And we've seen them in on all these players, but none of them like have taken that step. It's either they don't believe in the system or the product, or they don't believe in Jed. And so,
and think
that's
about,
where I think trade might be the only way.
Think about this. When was the last time that the Cubs signed a true star free agent? To me, the last name I can think of is Alfonso Soriano.
Yeah.
Which was before the 2007 season. Hell, my balls hadn't even dropped yet. I was still, a little kid in comparison.
Yeah.
And Soriano was my guy. Don't get it twisted, but that was the last time the Cubs really took that big free agency.
And that was at
Like,
the time when
yes.
they were changing ownership, and the Tribune's like, let's load enough debt on this for the next guy. So let's just go
Literally.
wild.
It was a fight move.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like them actually wanting to spend the
Yep.
money. Like, that's the crazy thing with all the stars that the Cubs have had on these teams. Like, think about it. Even just since I'll say since 2004, right? Derek Lee, they traded for it. Thomas Ramirez, they traded for it. You know, Starlin Castro was a development piece through the system, just like Bryant, just like, you know, Rizzo, they traded for some prospect. Obviously, he flourished in Chicago. Like, all of the stars that have played in Chicago were either organically grown, acquired as prospects, or traded for.
Yeah.
Those guys don't sign with the Cubs. Like, yes, Jason Hayward signs with the Cubs because he gets a lot of money to come to Chicago and be that final.
But he
piece,
was
and it
he's
great. It
not,
worked
he
out
was
with
never
Leonard
a
Series.
star.
They
Like, and that's the thing. Like,
No, he
they just
wasn't.
looked at him
And-
where it was like, okay, we see what you can be down in the future, so we'll reward you now. That's what they did.
and he had a fit. He had a fit because we needed an outfielder.
Yeah.
at the
Really
time.
needed a right fielder.
But-
Yeah.
But that like it. Then we can't use, like, we're a big market team. We can go out and do this. Like, we are a big market, but players still do not want to come to the Midwest. Like, it's just fact. They don't, like, there's not a lot of stars that sign free agency that come to the Midwest. They either get traded here, like Arenado getting traded, like even like St. Louis, a lot of theirs is through trades. They're just
Yeah.
better trades to get those
Yep.
stars.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And that, I think that's a perfect example, though, right? Of like how you can go out and get your stars. Look at just the other teams in the NL Central.
Brewers,
Christian Yelich,
how they
trade.
get trade. Like,
Exactly. You know, Arenado and Goldschmidt for the Cardinals trade. You know, Wilson Contreras signed, sure, but like overall, I mean, your
Even-
big time stars in the NL Central are all guys that were acquired via trade.
even look at Texas. Like, Texas, they do it a lot through trades. Like, they've gotten a couple pitchers to sign there, but it is Texas. But a lot of times they're making really good trades to get guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think the two big outliers for them were Simeon and Seager, and that's just because they paid them
Yeah.
a shit ton of money
They decided to go.
to go there. They were like, "Hey, man, take the bag," and it worked out. But I agree. I think, you know, but now is the time. Like, to me, these last I mean, the minor league season goes into early September, so these last 5-6 weeks now, to me, are huge for the Cubs front office, just in the sense of how do you value your minor leaguers? Like, who are you really sold on as you're a part of the future versus you are a part of my future because you're the trade piece I'm sending somewhere else to go get that star. Like, I think that needs to start being figured out because a lot of these guys are going to need to start being added to your 40-man in the not so distant future in the next 2 years or so. You know, where does Owen Casey fit? Does Moises Ballesteros have a place on this team in the future? Does, you know, Matt Shaw, is he truly your second baseman of the future? Or is he a piece that you move off of to go get a star? That's where some of that needs to start coming into play. And I think that's why a lot of Cubs fans are like begging them, just like DFA Miles Mastrobuoni, DFA Nick Madrigal, DFA all these guys. Add some of these guys to your 40-man, like Owen Casey and Moises Ballesteros. Hell, maybe you even give a cup of coffee to Kevin Alcantara at the end of the season and just say, hey, get your 5 games in, because guess what? He's already on the 40-man. You're already carrying a bunch of guys on the 40-man because of that reason. You got to start being able to figure out, hey, are these guys really going to be what we think they're going to be? And me speaking we as the front office. Or is this guy the piece that we include in a deal for insert big name here? Like, I don't know who's going to be available, right? That's half the battle, is who really is a realistic target. Because to me, like, the free agency signing that the Cubs would make for right field, and not that he would be a bad player by any means, but like would be like an Anthony Santander, not a Juan Soto, right? Like, that's the move that they probably do via free agency. But if you can go out and you can go trade for that big gun, that changes everything. And I think I agree. I think that's where they have to go. Like, you finally utilize this freaking prospect pool that's supposedly so good and go get somebody that's proven for once, so that we're not all sitting here metaphorically bashing our head off the wall because Miguel Amaya standing on second base and is probably not going to score.
Yep, and he won't score now.
Nope, because Michael Busch just struck out. See, it's the intuition is there. Christopher Cole in the comments, he said at least we have a half of the season left. He wonders how many they lose by the end of the year. You know what's going to piss me off? They're going to be just painfully good enough to just keep us hanging on till the end, just to win 78 games at the end of the season. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, at this point, my whole thing is if you're going to be bad or you're going to just hang around, at least be enjoyable to watch. Don't insult my intelligence with how you play baseball, because I've had that far too long this season where I'm just like, why do I waste my time? You don't. Yeah.
I'm going to have to jump off, but hey, love jumping out with you guys.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation. Nice to meet you, Bobby. But yeah, great what you guys do. Love Cubs on Tap. Love chatting some trade deadline and some Cubs with you guys.
Yeah. Likewise to you, man. We appreciate the Dingers, boys, and we'll find some ways during the winter time. We'll get some more crossover content going, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. But we appreciate you jumping on with us, Mission.
All right, later.
Take it easy, sir. Have a good one.
You too.
Couple more comments here, Bobby, as we continue to fire through this thing. Omar does not like Jed, is what I learned in the comment section so far. Omar, we appreciate you watching along. I've seen your comments, I promise.
I feel you, Omar, until he made the parade straight.
I know that parade, and you know what?
Because that came out of left. I went, oh, we mean business now. Oh, we're actually making a change for a good reason.
Exactly. I was told it would be in here. It is not in here, so I can't play it. But I have evidence that 5 days before the trade happened, I sat here on Cubs on Tap, and I said, the one player I would love to see the Cubs go get at this deadline is Isaac Paredes. And they did it. Yeah. And I was like, look at this. I'm on a heater right now. I called Teuvo Teravainen back to the Blackhawks back in April. I called Paredes to the Cubs. Now I'm going to just keep talking circles about Juan Soto in hopes that my luck continues. But, it was nice to see them go get a player that I think is going to be a legitimate upgrade. And I'm going to miss Christopher Morel. I love Christopher Morel as a player. I'm still going to appreciate him for what he is in Tampa. That's not a problem, right? They needed to go and make a move like that. They went out and they did it. I think that's a great place to start. I think from here now, it's just, they really do feel like that one superstar away. Even if it's not a Pete Alonso, a Vlad Guerrero in this lineup would look unreal.
When it comes to their signings, when it comes to what they do as a whole, I just think they're scared. I just think they don't want to go all in on one guy and then just look at it for the next 5 years and go, what did we do? That's their biggest. No, it's once in a while I understand it, but once in a while you gotta at least do one. You gotta take that jump. Take the training wheels off. I understand that you want to go for floor guys, but you need that one guy who's can ascend to great levels.
Yeah, indeed.
And I feel like they've lost that since Theo left. Theo had that tenacity. He had that go get 'em attitude where it's like, all right, we need this guy, let's go do it. Okay, we need a John Lester, let's sign him. And it's just, here's Hoyer, and he's like, oh, well, we like this guy's floor, or we think this guy can do better for us. No, you need a guy that a lot of the other big boys are going to get. You need to play in the deeper end of the pool and show that you mean business. Don't flirt around with Ohtani if you're not for real. Don't flirt around with Juan Soto if you're not for real. I remember when they flirted with Correa. I heard the rumor that they met with him in the winter meetings off site, and it's like, well, you got to understand what everyone else is going to do. They're going to overpay. They're going to give him what he wants. And you can't look at him and say, well, you know what? It's my way or the highway. No,
Right.
you gotta get out of your comfort zone for one or two signings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you absolutely do. And like that is such a perfect example because you do look at it now and you say, yeah, John Lester was the big fish
Yeah.
like that year.
Yeah.
Like the Cubs signed him, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh shit, maybe the Cubs do mean business.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
Like,
these guys that they go for, like I said, it's like just safer floors. You got to stop. You got to get out of that mentality that, oh, we can do this like the Tampa Bay Rays. Because I remember that one comment in the offseason, apparently to Jesse Rogers. And Jesse Rogers had talked to Hoyer. And Jesse Rogers was like, okay, well, where's the power bats? Where's the guys that are going to make this team jump to the next level? And I remember him saying a quote along the lines of, well, the Tampa Bay Rays do it this way. And then,
right,
but you're not the
Bay Rays.
You're not the Tampa Bay Rays. You have a wallet. You have means to get. That's the one big advantage that you have in this division. You have deep pockets and you have a large market, and you just don't use it because you think you can reinvent the wheel with signings that are under the radar.
Yeah, and I think that's the most infuriating part of all of it because you look at just how all these teams shape up, right?
Yep.
I have the graphic in front of me. I'm ready. I came prepared this time. So this was from Brooksgate. This was from the middle of July. So this is about 15 days ago. It's how much money each MLB team made in the previous season, so in 2023, and how much of that is going toward the 2024 payroll. Okay. And it's ranked based on usage percentage, which is a flawed stat because some teams just naturally spend more of their revenue than others on players, right?
Yeah.
For example, the New York Mets made just a hair under $400 million, which was 11th most in baseball, but they had the top payroll at $342 million.
Uncle Stevie.
So, Uncle Stevie. So 87% of your payroll, or 7% of your revenue is going to your payroll, right?
Yep.
Blue Jays are largely the same way. From a revenue standpoint, they're the 17th highest team in baseball, but they have the 9th highest payroll in baseball from a player perspective. Arizona Diamondbacks the same way. They only, they're 22nd in money made, but 11th in payroll. Padres are 15th in revenue made, 14th in payroll. But then you have, like, for example, the Dodgers, who are the second most profitable team in baseball, $549 million, which was number 2 only to the New York Yankees. But they did use 60% of that to pay players, and they had the second highest payroll behind the New York Mets. The New York Yankees, by 0.1, used less of their revenue to payroll ratio than the Cubs. Cubs are 17, Yankees are 18, right? The Yankees use 46.5%, so $316 million. They're still the third highest payroll in baseball. But they make $679 million a year because they're the Yankees, right? So
And,
then you can say that's a flawed stat.
Yeah, and I go around, I listen to pretty much every market sports radio, and the general mentality for Yankees fans is you make all this money, you have the highest ticket prices in the game, and you're the Yankees. Why aren't you signing Juan Soto's every year? We need to sign Juan Soto's every year. That's their mentality. And that's the mentality that I wish that maybe more Cub fans could get behind instead of this mentality of, oh, I don't want to trade Morel because he's such a nice guy. No, you want that mentality of, I want the biggest free agent. I live in a market that dictates I should get the biggest free agent. And
100%.
I mean, there's pockets of the fan base that want them to spend, and I do too. But there's a lot of just this culture that's been ingrained after the World Series. It's like more sentiment.
Oh no, Bobby froze. He's coming back.
You okay? I'm back. All right,
you're back.
All right, I heard you. I just saw the spinning wheel of death, but
oh, I was spinning. Okay, because
Yeah.
you froze on my end. So maybe it was me that was spinning. My internet's been really weird today. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
But
my laptop's goofy.
to your point though, Bobby, right? Like the Cubs had the 10th highest payroll in baseball, $236 million.
Yeah,
But they're the third highest revenue in baseball. They're the only one of 3 teams that makes over $500 million.
Yep.
Like, and you know what? Like, honestly, here's the thing about the usage ratio. Here's teams 4 through 11. Okay. Padres had the 15th highest revenue in baseball. They had the 14th highest payroll. Dodgers, second most revenue, second highest payroll. Rangers, 9th most revenue, 8th highest payroll. See the trend here?
Yep.
Astros, 7th highest revenue, 5th highest payroll. Phillies, 6th highest revenue, 5th highest payroll. Giants, 8th highest revenue, 7th highest payroll. Cardinals, 13th highest revenue, 13th highest payroll. Braves, 5th highest revenue, 4th highest payroll. Even if the Cubs spent at a roughly 55 to 60% clip of their revenue, they would be a top, 4 payroll in baseball? Because they have the money to do it. They just choose not to. And that's where things are starting to get a little bit frustrating. Christopher says the Rays have money but don't spend it. They had the 27th highest revenue last year.
Oh, pretty
They
much a
don't make
lot. If you boil it down, pretty much every team has the money to spend. It's the owner that, in the end, or the general manager that's like, hey, I don't want to spend this much, or hey, here's your budget, or hey, I like this player, but I don't want to sign him. So
I bet you the Rays would spend more money if the Rays were in Tampa Bay, and in Tampa, and I'm gonna die on that hill.
yeah,
As somebody who has gone down there plenty, has asked Rays fans what is the most infuriating part about the team. Like, everybody's like, well, it's summertime. Of course they don't want to go watch baseball. It's like, no, that's not the reason why they don't go to games. It's because St. Petersburg is impossible to get to unless you live anywhere remotely close to it. Like, a lot of the Tampa Bay Rays fans live near Orlando. They live outside of Tampa. Tampa and St. Petersburg are like a good 45 minutes to an hour away from each other because there's only one way to get there, and it's not efficient. Like, that is a location problem for the Tampa Bay Rays. If they were in Tampa, because like look at the other teams in Tampa. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have good attendance every year. I could go to the beach. I could go to the beach in September, but people still choose to go watch the Buccaneers play football.
Yeah.
You know, the Lightning have great attendance every year, and and that's a non-traditional hockey market. Yet they still have great attendance because those teams play in the heart of Tampa. The Rays don't. They don't play in Tampa. St. Petersburg is far, and there's nothing in St. Petersburg, so nobody goes to the games because it's not worth the effort to get down there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, at least with the Cubs. You're in a prime location. You're right off the red line. You're in the north side of Chicago.
Yeah.
You have a cathedral of baseball. You make $506 million in 2023. And yet you can't be a top 5 payroll in baseball. But you're a top 3 team in revenue.
Yep.
Because you're the Chicago Cubs. Like, I'm right there with you, Bobby. I kind of hope the fan base finally starts getting pissed. And it's like, why aren't we in on Juan Soto?
Yep.
You can afford him. What's he going to cost you? $40 million a year?
Yeah.
I'd give him $40 million a year.
And he's young enough. He's got the age on his side. Because, a lot of these superstars, it's like, okay, they're 30, 32. All right, maybe I can see some hesitancy when it comes to a long contract. But you got you have a rare window where there's a lot of guys who are young enough that you could say, okay, I can build around that, and I can give him the bag.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing with, like Bryce Harper was that way. Juan Soto's now that way. Like, these guys are young enough where if you pay them for 8 to 10 years, they're going to be worth the value of that contract for probably all of it, except for maybe a year of it.
Yep.
Versus, like you said, I agree. I don't want to pay a guy that's 33 for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's just not smart business, in my opinion.
Oh, we have a run on the board.
Woo!
Oh, a Cody Bellinger homer. Yes.
Let's go. Belly bomb.
Thank you.
Wow.
And that is
they're only down 3.
Yeah, and that is one of the guys where I'm like, all right, if you want to keep him, let's keep him, because I was all in favor of signing him. Bring back Belly.
Bring back Belly, and Belly is back. And that thing just got out too.
Nice.
That thing just got out. Hey, and it's a 2-run blast, so you'll take that. Belly finally cracks double figures as well.
Yeah.
With the old Twitter is ablaze right now with Christopher Morel's home run. This is very entertaining to watch.
Let's see.
Everybody is up in just flames. Also, he's wearing number 24. I kind of like that number.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan. Big fan. Oh, I'm going to spin again. Son of a bitch. Rolling, poly-oly.
There we go.
I'm back.
All right.
I'm back. You're back. We're both back. We're all back. Everybody's back. Nobody's back. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. Oh, fall. No. Isaac Paredes is 0 for 3. Cubs lose the trade. Hit the panic button, Bobby.
Well, at least he isn't K'd yet, so.
That's true. He hasn't K'd. He's putting the ball. You know what he's doing? He's putting the ball in play. What a crazy concept.
What is that? Just, oh my goodness.
I don't know what it's like for this team to put the ball in play, so I'll take it.
Yeah. Let me see.
I take it.
I just saw an interesting nugget on Twitter from a Twitter handle of Uncle Jeff. He had what we were speaking to with Morel in his first home run, if this will ever load. Former Cubs who homered in their first game after being traded by Jed Hoyer: Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, and Christopher Morel. So everyone who's on Twitter who's jumping on Jed for saying, how could you trade him? Just look at that list. We'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll work itself out. And again, I mean, Morel might go on to be a really good ball player.
And if he does, then so be it. It's just here there just wasn't a fit. You got to acknowledge that if a guy goes off somewhere else, sometimes it's just there wasn't a fit. You know,
yeah.
You can't beat somebody up. You didn't trade him from the farm system just to trade him. He was already up here. He showed you what he could do, and he couldn't do enough here. So
yeah,
not much you can do.
Definitely. This was a comment from a little bit earlier, Bobby. Darren agreed with you. He says Swanson has the gun-shy mentality on their mind as they speak, in just terms of what they do in free agency and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh, Nico Horner struck out. Weird. Weird.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, man. There's so much more to this mess that needs to happen. And this is truly the big offseason, right? Like I know each of the last couple every offseason is the biggest offseason until it's not the biggest offseason, right?
Yeah.
But like this one for Jed truly is, because like his contract is legitimately up. Like he might not get another crack at improving this team one more time unless they take a tangible step forward. If they take that tangible step forward and they are that key, they finally find their way to, playoff contention.
Oh yeah,
good on them, right? But a lot of that's gonna come down to Jed and getting some shit done.
No,
and we got somebody here. Hello, Mr. Rakota.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, we're doing all right. Man. How are you?
All right. We're watching the Cubs lose again. So
yeah, but Belly made it a 3-run game instead of a 5-run game.
It's true. I just saw that right before I booted up the old laptop.
The old laptop. Are you you wouldn't still happen to be on? Is this the Robo Machine laptop or is this the other laptop?
No, this is the laptop. The laptop I'm not allowed to talk about.
Got it. Touche. I know exactly what you mean there.
We're incognito.
Incognito. I love it. Joey, I need to pop away for just a quick hot second. So I'm going to let you ramble for a hot second here because I've asked this question to everybody. Your feelings on the MLB trade deadline as a whole and just how things transpired. And then in a more niche focused sense of how you think the Cubs did at the trade deadline. We'll step aside and let you say what you have to say.
All right. Well, I think with the deadline, and by the way, Bobby, good to finally talk to you.
Yeah, you as well.
I read a lot of your pieces. I don't have time to be writing as much anymore, but
Yeah,
I love all your work that you're doing
thank you.
with On Tap. So
Thank
really
you.
cool to be on here with
Yeah.
you. I as far as the deadline goes, as a whole, I mean it's cool. Like every year, right? The deadline's just a time you look forward to. I think whether you're a team that's buying, it's a lot cooler if you're a team that's buying or a fan of a team that's buying. But just to see the different moves that happen, I mean, I feel like the Dodgers always get everybody. It's kind of
Yeah.
how I'm feeling again this year. The Rays were obviously really, really active on all fronts, and I thought
Mhm.
that was pretty interesting. I mean, they always are seemingly pretty active, but I don't know why. But we don't usually see them in like pure sell mode. I guess like to me, they did make that. What was it? The Dylan Carlson trade? Was it
Yeah,
Dylan?
they got Dylan Carlson from St. Louis.
And then Morel. I guess they're not like actual just sell mode completely, but you could tell that they're really not focused on this year as much.
Yeah.
And they're just always wheeling and dealing, but I don't know. I mean, the trade deadline as a whole, it was what it was. It was fun to see all the different moves. I haven't even really kept up with all the moves. I've just been pretty busy here, but I know what the
Yeah.
Cubs did, and the Cubs, man, it was. I got it in my line here or whatever. It's a C grade deadline to me. Like it wasn't bad, wasn't good. Like I don't at least I don't know if it was good. Anyways, like I don't know if it was bad. I don't know if it was good. So that's why I just give it the C because it's like to me, I wanted to see them do more. I really wanted to see, guys like Smiley and I know it sucks, but Hendricks and Nico. Nico really was a guy that I was like, well, you can get good value for him, even though he's not having the greatest season. So I thought that could be a good deal. Obviously, Tyon, everyone's talking about him staying or going, and that was like the big rumor. Everybody kind of being in on Tyon around the league or having interest in him. Yeah, I just think like I look at Nico, and is that a guy that I just feel like he's the type of guy that's never going to be what you need offensively, especially this group. Like this group of team, the way that they're constructed, he's not what you need offensively. And so even though he's giving you what you're asking out of the shortstop position or second base position, not his old position. I just don't see him as like a guy that, and if Tommy Edman, who's been out all season, can get what he can get, in the trade market, I thought for sure Nico Horner was a guy that could get a pretty good number for, especially because he's just a little bit younger. He's not hurt. Really having the same. If you look at Edman's year last year, I think they're just super similar players. Like Edman had a down year last year. Nico's pretty much having a down year this year, but like stolen base wise, fairly similar in home runs. Oh, PCA, come on, baby. Oh, I
You
thought
are
I, I thought I had it. Am I behind?
Yeah, well, you're not that behind because I actually just popped up on my screen. So obviously, we're sharing this. This was a genius idea I got actually from a few other live streams to just share the game day up. So like I already saw it on here that he flew out,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was promising.
I know. I
That was
liked
promising.
it for a second, but it was like the classic. Oh yeah, you're an idiot. We didn't get all of it. But no, man. I was just saying about Nico. I think it's not that I necessarily. I guess I shouldn't say I wanted him to get dealt. Like it's not like you're mad about him being on the team. I just think that if a guy like Edman, who's coming off the injury and 2 years older, you are paying a little bit more than maybe what his value is at this point in his career, but it's just based off of this season. Like all in the off season, what were we saying about the extension? Everyone was saying, hey, lock him up, and it wasn't like it was this crazy extension. You pretty much, guaranteed just to keep him for like an extra year or two or whatever the case was throughout the team control and whatnot. So like, it's not, I look at the contracts on the Cubs, a lot of it's coming off the books this year, obviously, too, with like Smiley and Hendricks. So I don't think they're in a bad position that way. But if we just look at the trade deadline, like guys like Neris, Merriweather, I know Leiter got traded, which, I mean, it seems like an okay trade. I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens with the guys that got returned from the Yankees, but I don't have a problem with that. There's a couple other, what was it, Smiley? Did I say Smiley already?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and Talkman. What about Talkman? Talkman's
That's another
still
guy.
here.
Yeah.
And I thought he could have been really valuable for a team. A guy who gets on base, great eye at the plate. He could be a great fourth outfielder for somebody, or just a fill-in for a team that has an injury, especially if you want a guy with patience and just on base. Good defense, really. He plays solid defense. So, the other guy, this guy that's pitching right now, Jorge Lopez. He's only here for the end of the year. Jorge Lopez has been really good.
Yes.
So, but like, why is he kept? Are they planning on bringing him back? I mean, he's going to cost a little bit more the way he's pitching now. I don't know. So, I guess my whole take on the trade deadline is not. It just wasn't enough for what I was envisioning in my head of what they could have done, whether they were buying or selling or buying for next year or, whatever the case may be. Like, there just wasn't enough movement from the guys that they could have moved. And maybe that just is telling in the sense of what other teams think about what the Cubs have, that they feel like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I do like the Paredes move mostly.
What a nice play by Paredes, too,
Yeah.
defensively. Oh.
I just saw that. That was pretty sick. Let's see it again. Come on, show it.
I want to see it one more time. I want to see what good third base play looks like.
Oh, they're not going to show it. Bastards. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Whoa, Dansby. No way. He didn't get enough on the throw. Nice play, though. He definitely didn't get enough on the throw.
No, he did not. That would have been a crazy play, though.
Yeah, barehanded. That was crazy. Where was I at? I don't even know what I was talking about.
I don't know. But, Joey, I think I will say this because I feel like you are kind of in the middle of everything.
We
in the
lost
sense
Bobby.
of he's coming back. He said he had a connection issue, so he's just firing back up. I think the thing with the deadline that I'm seeing a lot of Cubs fans that are like, they did not do enough. And it's like, to your point though, like if I'm Jed, I'm not just going to give guys away to give guys away. Like that's not the way to go about things either.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, maybe just the market wasn't there, right? Like Jed quoted in his, in his press conference after the deadline, he said, I thought we were going to have one more trade before it was all said and done, and then everything just fizzled. Like, if nobody else wants to trade for your players, you can't trade somebody. This is not MLB, the show franchise mode where you control everything and the computer just has to say yay or nay.
Or you can
Right?
force
Like-
trade.
Yeah, or you force trade. It don't work that way. I know everybody wants it to work that way. Cubs fans love to have their cake and eat it too, but it just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like legitimately. And Bobby and I talked about this quite a bit a little bit earlier. Like, look at the Baltimore trade for Rodgers, right? Like, yeah, they got a nice return, the Marlins, but that's because Rodgers has 2 more years of arbitration. He's cheap. Jameson Taillon's not cheap for a team like Baltimore at $18 million for the next 2 years. Now, there's teams that certainly could have afforded Jameson Taillon, but that limits your market of teams that are probably logically in on him. And when you're limited, unfortunately, you're not going to get the return that you're going to generate if it's a team that has a bunch of ability. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
If Nico Horner was in an arbitration year making $3 million, I bet you a lot more teams are interested in Nico Horner. But Nico Horner's making $11.5 million as a $250 average second baseman who's only stolen 16 bags after a 40 stolen bag season a year ago, right?
Yeah, and
His
how many
value's
teams?
not there.
How many teams? I didn't really look at this either closely enough. So you're making a good point, but I also would like to go back and look at it. I wonder how many teams actually have the need for a Gold Glove second baseman that's not really hitting to where you would expect him to hit. Like
Prob-
even
For eleven
average
and a
wise,
half
like how
million
many?
dollars, probably not many.
Yeah, and I mean I don't even mean like just the price, but like just from a pure need standpoint of like what. You know what I mean? Because teams will get a little bit of aggressive if they have that need, but is there truly a need there? I don't know.
The Yankees might be, I think, the only team that you can make that argument for, just because Glaber is. And remember when Cubs fans were pissed that they traded Glaber Torres, Joey?
Yeah. Oh, I was never mad about that.
I wasn't either. But just
No.
you had to be pumped up about what you were doing that year. You know.
It's just one of those things. And Darren says it. He thinks that we hit it on the head here. Jed wanted high returns. I would too. Like all these guys have control. But if the market's not there for them because other teams that had cheaper, probably just as good options available, or more cost-efficient options, I'll call them for lack of a better word,
Sure.
they're going to go with those options over your options because guys are locked in. Now, if there was more of a bidding war for a starting pitcher and teams like the Yankees and Astros and all these other teams were competing and there were less economical options, sure, then I think there probably would have been a better market for Taillon, and I bet you we saw him traded. And maybe there was a world where the Yankees would be willing to part with like a Jason Dominguez and really make it worth the Cubs' while to trade a Jameson Taillon. But at this point, and this is not to call anybody out in the space of Cubs baseball, because I love debating Cubs baseball with everybody in the space that is Cubs.
Call him out, Ron. Call him out.
But Michael Cerami over at Bleacher Nation tweeted a little bit earlier about, all these people are upset saying that they need Taillon. They don't need Taillon, and he listed all the guys available for the Cubs for starters, right, for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Steele, yes. Shota Imanaga, yes. Here, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just bring up the tweet. I'm not even going to try to do this from memory because
Oh, look at this. We are getting really advanced here with these streams.
I know we're moving up in the world. Here we go.
I love it.
Here's the list. So Shota Imanaga, Justin Steele, we addressed that. Jordan Wicks has barely pitched all year. Right?
Mhm.
Javier Assad has some walk issues still.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were actually putting it up on the screen. I don't know why.
Oh, no. I'm not that advanced. Just reading
That
them off.
defeated what I even said now, but this is super advanced too, what you have.
Yeah. I actually have something to read from. I'm not trying to recall from memory. But Javier Assad, right, has his own walk issues. He's not really going deep into games. He's largely a 5-inning kind of guy right now.
Yep.
Ben Brown, hurt. Cade Horton, hurt. Hayden Wesneski,
And
hurt.
ineffective.
So of the 7 names that are listed, 4 of them are not even healthy right now and have not even thrown remotely close to. 5 of them have not even thrown remotely close to proper big league innings. You have 3 guys on that list that can truly pitch like what you would expect a true starter to pitch like. Or I'm sorry, not even 3 guys, 2
It's
guys.
Shota and Steele. That's it.
That's it. So you make the argument with Taillon, right? And they don't need Taillon, sure, but they don't have to get rid of Taillon either because your Kyle Hendricks is not coming back next year. So that's one rotation spot that frees up for somebody. And then let's be real. There's no guarantee Javier Assad remains a starter next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be given every opportunity, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So there's 2 starting spots that they potentially truly need to fill or figure out who's going to fill them next year. So it's not like, yes, they don't need Taillon, but why are you going to get rid of a guy who's proven he can routinely go 6 and 7 innings for you when, like Bobby said at the very top of the show when we talked, right? The Cubs bullpen has fallen apart because they overuse guys. Oh, but we want starters that can only throw 4 innings every fucking start. Like, what are we talking about? We're talking in
And also, you don't even have to trade Taillon because let's say you walk into the offseason without him. you're kind of already down a peg because you don't know how the market's going to bear in December. You don't know how many starters you're going to get in free agency, let alone you don't know how many good starters are out in free agency.
Right.
So you might as well just keep the floor that you have, which I can admire Jed for doing that. Keep the floor that you have with Tyone. He's dependable. He's a guy that you can use in a rotation in a playoff game. There you go.
I think also it's not like you can't trade him in the offseason.
Yeah.
Like if you really wanted to, like let's say you go out and you sign somebody who you really like let's say it's the guy from Japan, right? We've been talking about Sasaki. Well, let's say it's Sasaki. You get him, and you're like, oh, well, all of a sudden we have a starting pitcher who had a really good season. Let's hope he doesn't like peter out here the last 2 months and look worse with Taillon. But you wouldn't expect that to be the case. The type of consistency he's really had all season, but you never know. But there's an option there where you can even trade him, and like it's a good problem to have what the Cubs have with all these pitchers, right? And I know what you're saying, Ron. You're not bashing the guys that they have because all these guys have potential and all these guys can be good and have shown like in Assad's case when he's on, he can give you 6-7 good innings and be really good and consistent. It's just he has his issues too with the walks. And I mean, what did he walk the other night? Like 5 guys in his 2 starts ago.
6, I think. Yeah, it was ugly.
6. Yeah, that was terrible, dude. You can't have that from a starting pitcher. I don't care who you are. And then the injury factors too. Yeah, I mean, can these guys prove that they can actually stick and make it through the length of a season? We don't know because they're so young. Like some of these guys will always have those issues, and they just become long men in the pen, or they end up shortening up to 1 inning in the pen. But like I guess to kind of defend, I guess it would be Cerami here from the tweet. I understand where fans' frustration is with this. Not being frustrated. I can't get mad about it. I wouldn't say I'm mad. Like nobody should be really mad about it because you have a quality pitcher going into next year. But he's probably at his highest value right now. Like because I could see from at least from a performance sense, right? I could see next year he comes in and just like we predicted him to have a bounce back in a much better year this year. I don't know if any of us predicted it to be this damn good. And so now outside of his last start. So now you go into next year and it's probably not going to be as good, I would assume, as he's had so far this year. So it's like somewhere in the middle of like really shitty, really fucking good. He's an above average pitcher, right? Like that's where I kind of align Taillon. The problem is like back to what you said, Ron. You're not paying for on the trade market. You're not paying for Taillon just for this year. You have to weigh that for next year too. So that's where it doesn't align with just the value performance wise for this season. And other teams, I think they look at that and they're like, yeah, at least this is how I maybe am seeing it. Other teams look at it and they're like, yeah, we don't want to give you what you're asking for because we have this guy for next year. And even though we know he's a quality pitcher, we just don't think he's worth all that money because we're going for it this year and we want to do other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and here's also the thing too that I'm just going to make a counterpoint for sake of the discussion. Just like we could say, well, Taillon's at his max value. What if Ben Brown and Cade Horton blow their arms out and never can pitch again?
Then you're done. Yeah,
we're playing the same what if game with everybody, right? So like it's hard to sit here and play because he's an old veteran that we're paying a lot of money to, like he might be at his peak value.
And he's not even really that old. It's just career wise, performance wise,
Even if he middles to his career ERA next year, he's still a sub 4 ERA pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 3.94 career ERA. So
definitely.
And if he can give me 30 starts in a year, which of the guys listed here by Darren, how many of those guys have given you 30 starts in a year?
None. Has Steele even?
I don't think Steele did either because of injuries.
Yeah, I'd have to look.
And he
I don't think
Taillon
has ever given. Has Taillon ever pitched?
Taillon has done 30 more than once. Yes. Taillon has started over 30 games twice in his career, and he started 29 games in 2 separate years.
Okay.
So if you want to say 29 above, he's done it 4 times in his career. And some of the years that he didn't pitch a lot was because he had cancer. So I think that's a very fair reason not to pitch.
Yeah, probably shouldn't be pitching then.
But Horton got shut down. Again, if Horton's pitching the whole year at AAA, I feel a lot better about Horton coming into next year. Now, Horton's behind the 8 ball. To me, he needs to hold at least half a season to continue to get better and to advance and make sure he's healthy. And let's be real. Cade Horton, the reason I was calling for Cade Horton early in the season, if they were truly going to be a competitive team this late in the year to come up and be a closer, is because he hadn't pitched more than 4 innings in a game, even at the minor league level. You think he's going to come up and throw 7 right away? That sounds like Mark Pryor to me.
No,
That sounds like a recipe for disaster if that comes up and happens. Same thing with Ben Brown. Ben Brown looked great, but he has a legitimately like concerning injury right now in his back that the Cubs should not rush him into. Same thing with Wicks. He's been dealing with elbow injuries and shoulder injuries and shit. So I just again, and I'm not doing this because I'm trying to prove a point. I'm just saying that like if the market wasn't there for some of these guys, which I truly don't think it was, I would rather Jed hang on to them and at least know what you're getting. It's like the Family Guy skit, right? You can have the boat, or you can have the mystery box, and the mystery box could be a boat, right? Like in this case, he just said, "Hey, I know what we're getting with a lot of these guys. I know what we're getting with Jameson Taillon. I know what we're getting with Nico Horner. At least we can predict for that a little better than." Again, a list of pitchers that, yes, could they all be very talented starters? Absolutely. Are they going to all be talented starters? Mystery box. They could be the boat. It also could be a steaming pile of shit.
Yep.
I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's probably going to be something of those two. So, again, I think that's
It's a flaming bag of shit somebody got left on their doorstep.
Yeah.
It's Billy Madison.
It's also it's the steaming pile of shit. Brandon, we have been publicizing that we were doing this. So you got a tweet out today and everything. He says you wouldn't have gone to the game. No, I said you should. I say you always should go and watch live baseball. I will always be a fan for. Always go to the ballpark, even if they're losing. What is our record? Not good. If they lose this game, we're literally 1 in whatever amount of live streams we've done, -1.
Yeah, but you know what though? I mean, they're under 500, so we're just fitting.
Yeah, but we're like painfully bad, Joey. We're like 1 in 9.
Well, it's bad, yeah.
Like there's being below 500. Like if we were 4 and 6, I would feel a lot better. But we are literally 1 and whatever.
So if we didn't do these live streams, do you think the Cubs have a winning record?
No. God, no. Because we stopped doing them for a while in hopes that it would work, and it didn't. So
Damn it.
It's not us.
That's not.
We're not the problem. I also think the Cubs just suck on Tuesdays. I want to find the stat of what their record is on Tuesdays this season, because I bet you it's not really good.
That's when we've done most of them, right?
Yes,
Most
it's
of
really
the
what we've done most of these. Like I'm pulling up the schedule right now. We're gonna count this together. We're all in this
Record on
together.
Tuesdays. I don't think I've ever really tracked a team's record on which day, except for that one. Wasn't it Sunday that we were just looking at recently?
I think it was Sundays.
They had like a weird Sunday record or something.
All right, here we go. Count it out with me, folks. The Cubs started the season on what was it, a Thursday, right? Was their first game? Yeah. So the first Tuesday was that Rocky series. They won. Then they beat the Padres. So they were 2-0 on Tuesdays. And then we started doing watch-alongs. Literally, the 16th was when we started doing watch-alongs. Because they lost 12-11 in Arizona. I don't think we did one against when they played Houston. I don't think we did one. So they moved to 3-1 on Tuesdays. We did watch them beat the Mets, but I think that was on that Wednesday game because they lost 4-2 on that Tuesday. So that made them 3-2. 4-2, and this is where it starts to go downhill. No, actually, not too bad. 4-3, 5-3, 6-3 on Tuesdays. 7-3, 7-4, 8-4, 8-5, 8-6, 9-6, 9-7. So they're actually 9-7 on Tuesday. So we haven't done all of them on Tuesdays because we would have a really good record on Tuesdays if that was
Damn
the
it.
case. Unfortunately,
So we've just picked all the wrong Tuesdays.
we've just picked all the wrong days. Period.
It
I
could
think
be
is really
worse because one notable team that has a very terrible record is on the south side right now. And when it comes to Mondays, they do not have a win on a Monday at all.
Isn't that where they wear those terrible Southside jerseys too? I'm being dead serious. Isn't it like Southside Mondays or whatever? Isn't that a real thing?
No, I thought that was like Fridays that they would do that.
Oh, I thought that was Mondays.
Southside,
I'll give them.
stand
I'll
up.
give them credit. They do have good City Connect uniforms. I like them.
I
For what they
like
are,
them. I've
but-
had too many.
Ooh, all right.
I've had too many. Yeah.
Oh, hit too hard. Who was it?
Oh,
Who's on third right now?
Ian.
Yeah.
2
Ian
outs,
from the-
man.
Ian from the right side because he's got that right-handed batter's helmet on.
Good secondary. All right.
Isaac, it's time. This is what you got acquired for. I swear to God, I want him to clear the bases so badly, just to spite the people that are just freaking the fuck
Didn't-
out about Morel's home run on.
Oh,
Nats
he
right
did
now.
go yard. Okay, I thought I
He
saw
did go
that.
yard. He did go yard. Yeah, 420, like dead center down in Tampa, and he like golfed it out too.
Is that his first at bat?
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
Or, no,
fucking
no.
way.
I think it was his. No, I think it was his second at bat.
Oh, that would have been
He's
even
not his
sicker
first.
if it was his
Because he did
first.
it. He did it in like the fifth inning, and he's batting third. So,
Isn't that crazy? Look at all where his home runs are. All the left. It's all the left.
hello, sir.
Oh, hello.
Oh, I can't hear you,
Can't.
Booge.
Got the W, but we don't have the voice.
I was gonna say we can see that
W hat.
beautiful squirrel on your upper lip there, but I cannot hear your elegant baseball Booge voice. He's working on it.
I think we got too much
Oh.
going on in the background. We're messing it up.
No. And sometimes just stuff is really weird. Well, he's muted right now, which is fine. He's
It's actually my internet probably still messing it up for someone.
Joey.
else.
I'm convinced you've messed up everybody's internet. Hold on, let's you've opened up this can of worms. Juice has had shit internet. My internet's not been the same since.
It's contagious.
My dad called it Joey-itis the one day, and he's 100% correct.
Your dad's-
Every single freaking one of us.
I was even getting
Has
it in this
Joey-itis.
episode.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
Bobby's dealing with it.
It only happened when I came on here, probably.
Oh,
Oh.
It probably didn't even happen until I came on. And then
all
all
your
the
fault.
freezer. I wasn't
But-
Go
While
ahead.
while Jake's configuring everything on his end, because I am going to ask him about his trade deadline thoughts, because I know Jake is on the scorching earth. The Cubs are terrible at what they're doing side, and I'm excited for that because I want some heavy contradiction. But just going back to what we were discussing about the Tyone bit, right? About like what does this group look like in the free agent class? It's a group that's completely contingent on a lot of opt-outs.
Wait, can I say
if you really look
one
at it,
thing real quick? And
Sure.
I'm sure you guys have already said this.
maybe.
I am very scared. I'm very scared
What?
that Christopher Morel is going to absolutely, and it's not just the home run
Ooh.
tonight.
We got a wild
This was-
pitch in the next run. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's better than anything I was gonna say.
5-3
5-3.
now.
All right, let's go. Before they even when there was just talk about moving him, I sent this as a message. I was talking to a few people, and I was like, "Look, this is somebody who can backfire, really easily." Because my whole thing was, I think he was still developing when they called him up from AA.
100%.
I don't think he was quite up, and obviously they sent him back to AAA to start last year. Oh, Ron, I didn't mean
So
to cut you off
close.
though, but I really do believe that like it could backfire. I like the move for Paredes, but I think that Morel himself has a ton of upside, and that scares the fuck out of him.
Oh, I agree. And this is the fun thing is because Jake, you're the second Dinger co-host that we've had on tonight. Mitch joined us a little bit earlier, but like even Mitch and I kind of were discussing some of the stuff with Morel, and we were talking about like the pressure of the fan base to sign guys like Nico and Ian, and we kind of went down that rabbit hole. That was a topic of discussion for the Dingers boys. But like, if you really think about it, like Christopher Morel's best two defensive positions were left field and second base. You're paying $11.5 million to your second baseman and $21 million to your left fielder. So he wasn't going to supplant either one of them on a day-to-day basis. So it's like he really was without a position, and I think that's a large reason why he struggled at the plate this year is because of trying to learn third base. I really do. Like I think Morel, just because he's a younger guy, like I could see a world where he hyper focused on trying to get better at the position to the point where he just like lost focus at the plate almost, if that makes sense. Because last year he had a really good year, right? But like last year he also largely DH. He just focused on hitting and it panned out. You know, I think that's some of what it is too. Like some guys just aren't good at certain positions. Shit happens. That just is the name of the game. That's baseball, right? Like I can promise you, I played a handful of different positions in different sports, and I wasn't good at a lot of them. Like it's a normal thing, you know. So I don't. It's just something to think about there. And quick ago, Brandon said he hated the move. Thinks they gave up way too early. He says they have a chance to redeem themselves. But Morel is on the rise, and I'm sure he will be. But
Morel's brother, Rafael.
Oh, yeah.
Rafael Morel. What a name! What a name! But Jake, how you doing, buddy? First off, and we'd love to get your thoughts on the trade deadline, my guy.
Man, I'm glad we had friends over for dinner. So when you messaged me, Luce, I was like, wow. I got a lot to say. I want to get on there. And we're finished cleaning up and everything. And I was like, there's no way they're still on. There's no way.
Oh, we're going, baby.
And here you guys are. And boy, if you will let me get on my soapbox, I am ready to do so.
I'm gonna mute my microphone. This one is all you, baby.
All right. Appreciate it, man. So I was not able to be on Dingers last night. I listened back to the show. I wish I could have been on. Ian Mahan and I were chatting with everybody, the rest of the hosts in our group chat, and Ian and I share a very different view of the rest of the crew. So I'm not sure, Luce, when I first hopped in, I heard you say that I could be, a counterpoint to what you guys have said. So I'm not super privy to what you guys have said, but overall, thumbs up, thumbs down, just really quick visual. You guys are happy, unhappy with the deadline?
I'm like
okay.
this.
Yeah, okay.
I lean this way,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I'm like this.
I'm a hard thumbs down. And I've had time to kind of gather my thoughts to figure out why. This is just another instance of Jed Hoyer floundering and not choosing a direction. I feel like that's been, aside from the sell-off, the big sell-off, I feel like that's been his tenure. And it's been really, really frustrating to watch as a Cubs fan because it just feels like the guy can't commit one way or another. Again, the 2021 sell-off was handed to him. That was obvious. I mean, that was an obvious move to make. He could have kept one of the players and signed them long-term. Who knows how it could have happened? A lot of things could have gone differently if any three of those big names had stayed with the Cubs. Obviously, we've seen how their careers have panned out to this point. I still think that Bryant may have a little bit left in the tank. Not to be a stud or anything, but if he can get healthy, I still think that he can be a solid contributor. It does not mean that I want him on the team. But I digress. I just feel like Jed, he's not willing to pony up. And I think some of this was on Theo, too, toward the end of his tenure. not willing to pony up to pay the big money for the grade A talent that this team is severely lacking and has been lacking since 2021, and even kind of in 2021 when we traded those guys off. And I think what really got me hot yesterday was seeing we all love Dom. I mean, Fred has done so much for the fan base and keeping positivity alive. But the tweet that he sent yesterday, or maybe it must have been Sunday, where he quote tweeted Len Casper calling Aramis Ramirez's walk off and saying something like, the last time the Cubs traded for a third baseman, this is what happened. Isaac Paredes is not that. Isaac Paredes is not Aramis Ramirez. Far from it. I think Aramis is one of the most underrated players in the modern era. Not necessarily by Cubs fans, although I think there are some Cubs fans who slept on him, and myself included for a while until I looked back on the numbers and you see what the guy did. He was one of those kind of like lunch pail, hard hat kind of guys, just went in and day out and just contributed every day on both sides of the ball. I'm not saying that Isaac Paredes can't be a contributor to this team, but he is not a superstar. He does not fill the hole at third base, in my opinion. I think that he still leaves a lot to be desired. I tweeted out on Sunday, I think it was, the third baseman on each World Series winner for the last 7 or 8 years. And while I have seen some of those tweets out there comparing Isaac Paredes' numbers to a handful of those guys over the last couple of years, I don't think that he belongs in that tier. I think that he is playing way over his head. Yes, I am going to read into his batted ball profile because the guy does not hit the ball hard. And we know he was playing at an indoor stadium. And I know that's only half of his games, but what are his fly balls to left field going to look like on a day at Wrigley Field when the wind is howling in? It's going to look like a routine fly ball to shallow left field. That's what it's going to look like. And the frustrating thing for me is not that he traded Christopher Morel for Isaac Paredes. It's that he could have traded Christopher Morel in the offseason and gotten a better return because there was still a bigger question mark under Christopher Morel's name at that point than there was at this point halfway through the season, or a little bit halfway through the season. It just feels like Jed has continuously missed opportunities to capitalize on big moves, whether it be a free agent signing or a big trade. And this is just a cherry on top for me. We have him for what? We have Paredes. He's got 2.5 more years of control.
3.5.
3. I think that by the end of those 3.5 years, he is going to be a bench piece. He's not going to. I hope he's not the start. I mean, unless he completes me or proves me completely wrong, which I would admit. I put it all out there. You guys have seen the tweets. I put it all out there that I don't like the move. And again, it is not because of Morel leaving. I am fine with having traded Morel. Do I think that he could still blow up and become maybe not a superstar, but a perennial all-star candidate? Totally. I totally think that that's in the bag. But Joey, as you were saying, Joey or Ron, you guys were saying there's no defensive position, and that's what hurts Morel. I just think that I don't want Cubs fans this is the last thought that I'll put in here. Seeing Cubs fans really buy in to Paredes kind of makes me feel like Jed's pulling like Jed's fleecing all of these Cubs fans the way that I think Jed got fleeced by the Rays. I think that Paredes has looked great on paper with the counting numbers for the last 2 seasons, but I straight up don't expect it to translate to offensive production of the same level with the Cubs. We won't get into defense. He's a slightly above average third base defender. That's fine. That's all well and good. Obviously, we needed a glove there, but this team needs offense clearly, and I just feel like Jed pulled a fast one on fans to try to get some excitement going. It's not going to work on me.
I think,
I'm too cynical, man.
dude, I think it's really. I love that you're bringing up the bad ball stuff, because just seeing that he and the wind blowing in at Wrigley and in left field, just seeing that he's 69 of his 69 homers are all to left field too. Like, that to me is worrisome if you can't even hit the ball out every once in a while to the right side. You know, like,
Yeah.
you should be able to. I don't care if you're more pull happy or an oppo machine. You should be able to take some pitches out to the right side. So that is it's concerning. Like, it's definitely one of those things where you're like, okay, did the Rays really just identify someone who, and all the data is out there, like, it's at our fingertips at this point as far as like the batted ball stuff. But did the Rays really like just do exactly what you just did, Jake, and identify someone who is playing over their head and just said, hey, we can get a guy who's playing under his head, basically? And
Right. It was a classic sell high, buy low. And the fact that Jed, I think, fell for that and I think overpaid. Like, it again, I hope I'm proven wrong, but it feels embarrassing, Joe. Like, it feels embarrassing.
I get it. I'll be honest with you too. I know the pieces that were involved in the deal, like, we didn't really talk about, or at least you guys might have talked about it before I got on here, but I didn't know. Like Hunter Biggie and was it Ty Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Johnson, I think, can be really good. We'll see, but he's like a ways away, and plus I don't think he's ever going to be high end enough to be like,
Joey, you could also win the lottery.
right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Just saying.
I could. That's not going to happen to me. Let's be honest. But I did win the slots last night.
Can't win if you don't play.
Or not last night. Saturday night, I did win slots, and I never win at slots. So, God, maybe everything's going to hell. But anyways, Hunter Biggie, dude, it's the guy that you developed, right? A guy that has made it to this point who wasn't really like a highly thought of prospect. He's a reliever, but he's a guy who touches 100. Like, he's averaging 97, 98 on his fastball. And I thought, okay, you got a guy here with control. He's not towards the end of his, like, he's not on the last year where you need to move this reliever or you're paying him a decent chunk and a team will pay for a reliever at the deadline. Like, that to me was like, that's a little over the top. What have the Cubs been lacking for the last few years? High velocity bullpen arms. And this guy has looked like he's pretty damn good. He comes up here. He's not done a bad job so far. I know his whip is like, in the small sample, doesn't look good. 1.5. What, has he pitched like 3 and a third inning so far? Whatever. Who gives a fuck? But I'm like, I just didn't understand. I thought it was a little bit excessive for who you got, for who you gave up, when a guy could, like, Morel could easily hit 40 bombs. He could. He might never, because he's hitting towards the Mendoza line and all that. But
he hit a home run for the Rays today.
I don't know, man. It's got Schwarber scare to it to me, and it's not because of the underlying numbers are a big part of that. But I also think he's very focused on playing good defense, even though he sucks at defense at third base.
He's like but the thing too, though, like, I do feel like Ian and I were talking about this. I feel like he's shown flashes of like really good plays. And this is his first season playing at the big league level, third base. Like, that's a really, first of all, we know it's the hot corner. We know, like, you couldn't pay me to play third base
at MLB level. No, I not even rookie
let
ball.
alone. Yeah. But I'm talking even in my men's league, I don't want to play third base. You know? So it's like, yeah. So and the other thing too that I feel like wasn't talked about enough was his hand injury. Like, he has to open his glove up physically before every play, because he can only open his hand so far because of the damage that was done in, I think, the car accident that he got in. I know that was profiled really highly when he first got called up. So, like, he's thinking about that. He's thinking about learning a new position. He's thinking about how he's struggling at the plate. There's a lot of stuff going on for him mentally, and I didn't see whether he was starting at third base today for the Rays or if he was starting at DH. But
Was it
I
second?
wouldn't be surprised. Was he starting at second?
Yes.
That's even better for him. That's
He's,
what
it
he
is.
should have been
he's a
playing.
better
We
second
know
it.
baseman or middle infielder, anywhere in the middle infield, even shortstop.
And-
He's a good, decent shortstop.
And Jake,
compared to third.
that's something that I've said ever since this trade happened. Like the best thing for Christopher Morel was to go to Tampa, where the two positions he played best, left field and second base, statistically, are open, and he can
Yeah.
play those
Yeah.
and use his athleticism to play those positions. Unfortunately, in Chicago, for him,
I did.
because
Yeah,
like
I
we
heard you
talked
say
about,
that.
$32 million is allocated per year to those two positions. And I think
So now,
there's another flaw for Jed, though, right? Like he overpaid Nico when he probably shouldn't have. I'm a little less upset about Ian Happ because at least Ian Happ is contributing with RBIs and things like that. And, like he does walk and he's a little bit in a funk right now, but he had a hell of a hot streak, and we all know the type of player Ian is as the season goes on. But like, I feel like there is almost this element with Jed, just in general. And I admittedly am on the complete opposite spectrum with you guys for Paredes. I think he can be a fine player. I'm not really worried about the whole pull thing because 31 home runs in the new dead ball era is still 31 home runs in the new dead ball era, even if he plays in Tampa and in a dome. But you still got to play half your games on the road. And I know there was a quote, Darren asked about his home and away split. They're actually very similar. He's actually a little bit better with average on the road, and he has a little bit better slug at home. But overall, it kind of evens itself out. But I think this is the case where, like, I'm almost wondering if Jed Hoyer, and again, and this is where I and Joey, Jake, you guys weren't here to hear this, and Bobby, I'm sorry that you have to hear this a second time because Bobby's been a trooper just listening to me repeat myself all night. But I sat there talking to Mitch about this, and I was like, I almost like I'm mentally envisioning now, especially after Mitch brought up the whole like Cubs fan peer pressure thing to Jed, of like me sitting in the left field bleachers looking around going, it's all your fault to the fans. Because because Cubs fans fall in love with players for no reason whatsoever. There's an unnatural love for players who have done nothing for this city or this team, but just immediately fall in love with guys. And then
That's why I would have been 100% okay with Nico Horner getting traded because fans love Nico Horner too.
Fans love Nico Horner. That's why Nico Horner got paid, even though Nico Horner was a 270 second baseman who had no pop. On a team that, and here's the thing, if Nico Horner got on base more and used his speed more and the things he was actually good at, he did more, this wouldn't be an issue. But he doesn't fucking do that. Like, and he's not hitting for average and he's not hitting for power and he doesn't walk. And it's like, so you are, Joey, you and I sat here and you put this PTSD inducing thought in my brain. Is he just another Darwin Barney?
He's a
ooh, that's a good question.
better version of Barney, but he's
is he?
but I don't know. It's kind of like
Offensively, I think he is. I think he's got a bigger upside than Barney did.
but at the same time, he's never going to hit the home runs that you want.
And if he's hitting 250 like he is right now, that's not what you need Nico Horner to be doing. Like he needs to be a 280 guy if he's not going to hit for power.
I will say though, his OBP looks better than what I thought it would with his average where it is. So he's gotten better with the OBP than.
Is it in the 340s?
No,
326 I thought it was or something, which is better though when you're hitting like 250. Like
yeah,
but he was in the 340s last year. He was in the 380s back in 2021. Granted, that was only in 44 games, but
okay, let me ask you guys this question because now that we're on the topic, and I want to, it's kind of I was thinking about this earlier. Morel moves to second base. Nico Horner's traded. What's your outlook there? I'm not saying that they could have gotten the same deal done for Paredes as they did with Nico Horner deal. That deal's.
I
if
think
you
they
traded
gotten a better third
Nico,
baseman.
Biggie, and Johnson for that, I would have been over the moon.
Well,
No, I
I'm
think
just
they could
saying.
have gotten a better third baseman than Paredes. I think someone like Nico Horner is valued higher
Well,
than
okay.
I would imagine.
Jake,
Is he
okay.
though?
I want this question
I
to you
would.
too. This is another question that I actually posed in our group chat the other day. Ron, you know what I'm talking about. Do you think? I'm curious because I saw a tweet put out there from somebody getting a little bit upset about how much the Cardinals got for Tommy Edman. Right? Won't name names. Getting upset about what the Cardinals got for Tommy Edman. I understand he's been hurt and he had a down year last year. Nico's having a down year this year. He's a little bit more expensive. He's 2 years younger. He's basically the same player, in my opinion, because Tommy Edman plays Gold Glove defense too. So, do you value him at that same? Like, if that's the return for someone like him, do you think that would have been more so is that closer to the return, kind of, or like what's Nico's value on the market?
I think it's slightly below. I think it's slightly. Remind me who the Cardinals got. They got
Fetty and they got Tommy Pham.
Fetty and Pham. Oh, I guess I guess they were more so in like a buyer's market, but like,
And they didn't give up shit.
No.
yeah, I
Like,
mean,
early on.
No.
but Fetty and
It's
Pham,
tough.
those are
It's-
two damn good players to get for
Wow.
a guy who hasn't played all year. But I understand
Right.
that too. But like, if that's Nico Horner's return, like that's a pretty good return, right?
Well, and mind you, though, with Edmund's more of a utility guy.
Yeah,
Legitimately.
True.
outfield
Like
as
Nico
well.
Horner
True.
plays nothing else but second base.
Yeah.
That is
At least-
true.
I
At
mean,
least Edmund can
second
move around
short,
more.
second short,
Second
yeah.
short, but I think Edmund has a better arm than Nico does
Yeah.
by very small margins, but
Sure,
just
yeah.
a little bit better. So that profile's a little better at short. But like for a team like the
Offensively, though,
Dodgers who like to
offensively.
move guys around, even offensively, I think here's the problem in my opinion with Nico. And this is something. Sorry, Bobby, you're a trooper. But to me, the reason the Cubs got so shafted at this deadline is because the fact that you're paying your two trade chips that were the loudest in terms of who could have been moved, right? Tyone and Horner, 8 figures per year for the next 2 years
Yes.
after this one,
Yes.
including this year. That takes out like half the teams in baseball. Like, look at the Baltimore Orioles trade for Rodgers, right? Like, if the Cubs could have gotten that return for Tyone, we'd all be doing backflips and somersaults having
Yep.
Connor Norby in this farm system. The
Yeah.
problem is,
God, I would have
though,
loved Norby over
Rodgers
here.
is making $496K this year in his 2 years of arbitration. Tyone's making $18 million for the next 2 years, which would have made him the highest paid pitcher on the Baltimore Orioles. It's a whole different ballpark when you factor in the financial aspect of it. And I think that's where the Cubs lost value with Nico Horner. If
That's
Nico
a
Horner's
really good.
$3 million arbitration player, like he would have been had they not bought out his arbitration years, different animal. I think Nico Horner is way more valuable to teams if he's cheaper.
Yeah, I
That's
think
to
that's
me what trips them up.
that's you know what, and the financial aspect, Luce, I think is something that a lot of us may have overlooked, myself included, because but I mean, you look at like the Astros were in on Tyone, and the Astros could have afforded Tyone.
Sure.
But I think
Well-
Nico's trade market is definitely that's definitely a fair point to bring up.
I do think
If Jed
Tyone-
was even seriously shopping him, like if
Fair.
that was even a
Yeah,
serious
we don't really
thing,
know that,
which like
yeah.
I still don't know. Like if they had traded Nico, I would have been bummed. I love Nico Horner, but at the same time too, it's like he contributes to right now the big two problems on this team. Like you're saying, Ron, you've got guys tied up in big contracts, probably overpaid, arguably overpaid, and they're not producing like superstars. I wanted to make one point when you were talking about Ian Happ and being okay with Happ's contract. The thing that frustrates me, and like I will talk about this until he retires and then probably for a few years after the fact, not signing Bryce Harper is the fattest miss in Cubs history. You
I
look
was
at
just
his
talking to
contract.
with somebody about this today, literally.
and that
He's
and
getting
Jake,
he's
that
only
is-
making like $2 million more than Ian Happ a year right now. It's like it's
Oh.
literally it's like
Sick.
Happ is making like 21 million and Harper's making like 23 to 24 million.
I'll
Like,
get you an
the
exact
contract
number.
looked-
Jake.
Yeah, let me know. Like, because the contract looked, it was a huge contract when Harper was signed, but the whole point is like, with the CBA continuing to rise, and I would imagine that not the CBA, the luxury tax continuing to rise, and I would imagine because of the CBA, new negotiations will continue to raise that ceiling, which makes sense as the economy keeps inflating. Whatever, like yes, it's the contracts are going to keep up with that, but like at the end
Bryce
of
is
this
making 27.5.
and Ian's at what 22, 21?
21. But still, for $6 million difference, point still applies. I'm right there with you on your point, though.
So that's the thing. I mean, and like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Ron. It's like Jed's paying guys because it's like he's trying to make up for not paying guys in the past.
It feels that way.
But he also
right.
wasn't alone with that Harper thing, though. But I do think that there weren't many options this offseason to like.
Remember when White Sox
Open
fans
market.
thought they were legitimately getting Bryce Harper? Do you remember that?
Oh, that was a good time. Yeah, they were seating the table for everybody.
Manny Machado. They even brought all his.
Oh
buddies
yeah,
over.
Yonder and John
Yonder
Jay.
and-
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
God, good
Got to
times.
get the cousins first.
That's,
I want to
that's
go
Jed-
off an
that's
early. I want to go off an earlier point.
Jed's
Sorry to
angle this
interrupt.
offseason.
But with Jake's
No.
point earlier about the Paredes trade, I'm in favor of the trade. I'm with Ron on it, but I can also see the aspect of you're dealing with Tampa Bay. It's like dealing with the devil.
It is
just
like
to-
dealing with the double.
Just to think with Isak Paredes, how Tampa Bay got him originally
Oh shit!
was Detroit.
Meadows.
It was the Austin. And Austin Meadows was a great player in Tampa, but once he gets to Detroit, he has to deal with obviously mental issues. You can't predict that. And then even when they got Austin Meadows, that was the Chris Archer trade, and they fleeced Pittsburgh on that. So they have a good track record of doing their homework when it comes to these trades.
I will
Yeah,
say
and-
one thing though with the Rays, as somebody who probably follows them for being in Chicago, I probably follow them way too closely because again, they're a team that I like to root for.
Yeah, that's my Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah,
stand.
your Baltimore Orioles is my Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah,
I'm an Orioles guy too.
I even have Baltimore Orioles license plate holders. So
Oh, okay, I'm not like a fan like that, but
I will say though with Tampa, like there have been a lot more trades though in recent memory where they haven't done the fleecing that they historically did. Like Andrew Friedman was a huge part of that fleecing model of history. Like they've still made good trades, and you just noted some of them. Like the Austin Meadows trade to this day, or pardon me, the Chris Archer trade to this day might go down as one of the greatest trades in Tampa Bay Rays history because it got you a couple good years of Austin Meadows and Tyler Glass. So like that alone might have been worth it at the end of the day.
If you even look at the Jake Cronenworth trade with San Diego, that was one they let go away because Cronenworth turned out to be an actual stud in San Diego who could actually play first and second.
Right. So they have lost just as many trades as they've won in recent years. Like they aren't the same devil that they used to be. They still have a couple of little horns that are about yay big, but they're not the big ones that come like out to here anymore like they used to be.
Yeah.
So I do understand. I agree with you, Bob. Like I do understand that hesitancy with dealing with the Rays. But like at the same time, I think the one thing too that a lot of Cubs fans might overlook when it comes to Paredes is like the Cubs have the scouting report. He was an international free agent of theirs. Like they know his flaws at the end of the day, and they watched him develop. And there was a really good comment here I do want to just want to bring up because I think it's really, 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 really fascinating. And it was from Darren a little bit earlier. Here it is. And then Joey, you were talking when this comment came up. That's why it says but Joey. He is the same age as Morel. They were in the same free agency class together. I'm sorry, Jake. I realize your head gets cut off by this comment. I apologize. The same age as Morel. A lot of people say Morel's not there yet. Maybe Paredes can. Paredes is only 25. Like I think a lot of people think he's older because he's been in the big leagues for 5 years. Like I almost forgot he's only 25 when they made the trade. I like looked, I was like, oh shit, he's a baby. He's so young and little. Like he makes me feel old. You know what I mean? So I think there is a chance where he could improve on some of that. And maybe that's something that the Cubs can maybe help him with. And I feel like tasting like vinegar saying that because I feel like the Cubs haven't helped anybody do anything recently in good years of development. But I'm going to be blindly optimistic and hope that can be.
Which hand
right?
gets filled first?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I've got to hop here in a second, but I think the highlighting another one of Darren's comments here. I think this is the problem. He says if the current lineup had one more really good bat and one superstar bat, this core of nice would shine.
He's not wrong.
We traded away Christopher Morel, who I think may end up being more of like a Nelson Velasquez heavy type player where like he'll go on tears from time to time and be like, oh man, I miss Christopher Morel. I don't think we're going to necessarily regret it to the level of Kyle Schwarber, but that's the problem is that Jed made this move and you still need more. You still need more. So every move that Jed has made, it's like, okay, but we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I really hope that the other shoe drops in the form of one of the minor leaguers, Triantos or Shaw, coming up and being a superstar bet. Owen Casey, as Scott says, it's criminal that Owen Casey isn't in Chicago. Like maybe one of those guys comes up and that's the superstar. Maybe Seiya not playing the field and we've got, Bellinger in right field and PCA in center and Seiya DHing every day. Maybe that's the answer. Mitch brought that up, I believe, on the most recent episode of Dingers. But the problem that leaves me frustrated is that we're still waiting. We're still waiting for something. And he's had opportunities to make the big signing, sign the big player. And I recognize that maybe there are guys like maybe Corey Seager went to Texas because of, there's no income tax there, which is totally fair when you're making that much money. Totally fair versus coming to Chicago where you've got Cook County taxes if you're living in the Chicagoland area. But those are little minuscule points that maybe we overlook sometimes. But again,
no, it's 100%
give them
real,
more
though.
money. Give them more. The Chicago Cubs. We always say that. So I hope Paredes proves me wrong. I hope he gives us some stuff to to be excited about. I hope that he ends up being the really good bat that Darren is asking for, and then all we are is one superstar short, which is easier said than done to get as part of the team here. Guys, thank you for letting me jump on.
Jake,
Thanks,
real
man.
quick. Do you have time for one question?
Yeah.
Okay. What were your thoughts about the rest? Obviously, you weren't going to get a big piece from the rest of but the guys that were just fringe guys that they didn't move. Let's say Talkman and Smiley and Neris and Merriweather, guys that you might have gotten something for that were pitching well or playing decently well. Maybe somebody could have found them useful. Did you have thoughts on them not moving those guys, even though it's not like your superstar gathering trades, but I don't know. I was looking at that as that's kind of a miss to me.
I think it's a huge miss, Joey, for sure. I think if you maybe the only return that you get for any of those guys is a flyer, but you take the flyer, man. Why? You're telling me that you'd I'm not saying you, but just the royal you. You're telling me you'd rather have Hector Neris or Drew Smiley on an expiring contract than a wild card tossed in minor leaguer?
Yeah, give me
No.
give me the Daniel Palencia type that when we first traded for him,
Right.
I don't care.
And-
That was a flyer
and-
at the time, basically. He was wasn't he a low A guy at the time with the A's?
Yeah, for Chafin.
I know he didn't
And I
pan
think-
out really yet, but like still, that's that type of move,
I think
right?
there's still a possibility. I'm not necessarily giving up on Valencia yet, but again, if he does pan out, like that's one of those. That's exactly the move, Joey. It's a perfect example. That's one of those things where it's like, if he does pan out, well, shit, okay. You know, we're mining for gold here. We're prospecting, quite literally.
Mhm.
So, and then like somebody else brought up that I saw, you dealt David Robertson for Ben Brown, and Ben Brown's either going to be like maybe a solid number 3 in the rotation. Does he have number 2 upside? I think if he adds another pitch, maybe, or he could be a lights out bullpen. So like, yes, those were big misses. And I'll cap it off by saying, I also think that it was gross negligence to throw Jamison Tyone last night instead of holding him back and trading him when you see what the starting pitcher trade market looked like. That is unforgivable to me.
Well, like, okay,
Unbelievable.
even if you don't trade him, which they didn't, I didn't understand why he was pitching, because he has got nothing to gain and everything to lose. Even if he goes out and throws a complete game shutout, how much did he improve his numbers? Really, his numbers are already great on the season. You pitch bad, one bad outing isn't going to completely kill your stock, but so I'm not even saying that killed his stock last night. But go ahead and get hurt. Why don't you? If you had plans on trading him or listening to the offers, the big offers. I don't care if you even had thoughts of trading him. Somebody might have called you and offered you something crazy. So why fucking pitch him?
If you're a contending team and you're looking at that saying like, damn, well, that just ate up 5 innings that we could, I don't even know how many innings he went last night, but that just ate up innings that we could have used him for down the stretch to get to the playoffs here. Like, it's yeah. So I don't know, boys. I look, I'm not optimistic that we make a wild card spot this season, but I hope they give us something. I hope they give us something to watch. Thanks for letting me jump on, guys. And
Yeah, man.
I'll be
fun, Jake.
listening as always.
Yeah.
Always
Later,
Good
fun.
to see you, Jake. We'll talk to you soon, man. Take it easy.
Later.
Yeah.
Couple of good comments here, boys, as we finish this thing up. Cubs did lose officially now, 6-3 at the hands of the Cincinnati Reds. So series loss in order. They avoid the sweep. Tomorrow night, we will be back with a show again tomorrow night, recapping the series. Don't know who's going to be on that. Don't know what the conversation is going to be, but somebody's going to do it, and we'll be there when the time comes. Just a couple of quick comments here. Omar, a little bit earlier. Omar, I think you're a big Christopher Morel fan, is what I've gathered, my friend.
Yeah.
But he says, what if Paredes gets hurt?
I get
Who's
it.
going to play third base? I get it. I do.
Well, I
And-
counter with this. What if Christopher Morel gets hurt? Who's
Right.
the third
And
base?
Anyone can get hurt.
it's a fear, and I get the fear of trading Morel, and he is under team control, so he's got at least probably 4 years in Tampa, probably 3, because they'll flip him before he's a full free agent. Bobby on the full freeze frame here for the moment. He'll be back. He'll be back. He takes him a couple minutes. He's had Joey-itis stepping into the Cubs on tap realm, unfortunately, tonight. But a couple other ones here as well. Darren said he's not that optimistic, thinking Paredes maybe he's another nice player. He thinks they need a catcher with a really good bat and a superstar. I agree. I think they need that regardless, even if Paredes is a guy. In addition, like Scott said, superstars were not traded at this deadline. The Cubs are full of 4A guys that could fill out rosters for other teams. He says they easily could have moved 3 to 5 open up some roster spots for some of their top prospects to come
That's
up
the
and
thing, man. Like
have a
all these
chance.
guys that are like right on the cusp, and you got no. Eventually, you're just gonna have to DFA guys. Like, if you're out of it, man, in September, like these guys got to play.
Oh,
Come on.
100%. I agree. I think the top guys do need to. And that's the thing, like, I do. Here's what I think, kind of in summation about the deadline. And I think both sides, are right to a fault, right? Like, I think that you can like the Paredes trade. I think you can like the player. I like the player. I think he does something for the Cubs that they need. I know a lot of people look at the batted ball numbers and say, well, he doesn't hit the ball very hard, but the guy hits for a respectable average. He does hit home runs. He drives in runs, and he plays a solid defense. He takes a lot of walks. He's a good baseball player. He's not
Mhm.
the guy, but the Cubs weren't going to get that guy instead. But I do think there's a lot of ways you can take a look at this, like Jake said, and say they could have done a lot more. And even maybe they don't. Let's say Tyone and maybe Horner out of the deal here. Let's say that Jed decided they were going to hang on to those guys after getting Paredes and they didn't want to move them. But it's a fair point, right? Why are you going to let Drew Smiley and Hector Neris and some of these other bullpen arms just rot on this roster for the rest of the year when you could have taken a flyer on a couple guys? A Mike Tauchman.
Yep.
And I get it. Tauchman is still under team control for 2 more years after this one. But what if a team is willing to overpay for him? And they might have had discussions, and maybe just nobody wanted to give the Cubs the value that they saw in a guy like Mike Tauchman, which if that's the case, fine. But I do think there is a chance that maybe the Cubs asked too much for some of these guys, maybe more so the bullpen arms, the Smileys, the Narises, guys like that, where yeah, maybe Jed could have done a little more. Maybe you could have opened up a couple of more spots on this 40-man roster. And I think that's going to happen sooner than later. I think there's a world Miles Mastrobuoni gets DFA'd, Madrigal gets DFA'd. Some of these guys might start getting DFA'd just to open up 40-man spots.
Don't get my hopes up.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to, my guy.
Those are 2 players I just, to this day, I don't understand the fascination.
I don't either. And
No,
you know what? Because you have guys.
Time.
They have guys that they're going to have to make decisions on. And
Yeah.
I mentioned this a little bit earlier, especially with this offseason, because Mitch said it, right? They're probably going to have to go trade for a superstar. And I think Bobby and I were largely in agreement with that, Joey. It was just a little bit before you joined us. They're going to have to understand what some of these guys are. I would want to know what Owen Casey is at the big league level right now. I want to know the same thing about guys like Moises Ballesteros and some of these other ones, maybe not so much a Matt Shaw, but why not a Kevin Alcantara? He's on your 40-man already. You don't have to make a 40-man roster move to get a look at him. And even if he isn't quite ready, and maybe you don't end up trading him, but at least you know where he's at. I think they need to see some of these kids before the year's over, especially because I think a lot of your pitching kids that you saw early in the year are not going to pitch the rest of the year. I don't expect to see Jordan Wicks or Ben Brown the rest of the year, just because I think their injuries are not worth trying to rush and get them back on a season that looks like it's going to be lost. So, let's see some of these guys, right?
I'm gonna keep banging the drum for Canario, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, him too. And
What?
he's on the 40-man.
What are we doing? He's been
He-
so close. He's come up. He's actually played well. He did it earlier this season.
He's
In
got
the
the
limited
second best OPS on the team if you go by his 4 games that he's
and
played.
he's one of your
Yeah.
prospects you traded for when you started this whole fucking thing.
Yep.
So what, did we
Ian
just
Killian.
lose hope in this guy? Come
Yeah.
on, man. If there's anybody who deserves that, I got to see what I have in this guy. Otherwise,
Alexander
package
Canario.
him and sell
Yeah.
him. It's Canario.
Yep.
That's to a T, because he could be a good prospect to trade in another move that helps you make your ball club better, because you have so much outfield depth around. If he's not truly a guy, and to your point, Ron, maybe with some of these guys, and we saw it with Morel, right? Maybe you don't find out what you need to find out from these prospects. You call up an Owen Casey, or you call up for not argument's sake, but hot topic sake, Matt Shaw, which I don't think he's getting called up this year. But let's say you call up these guys, Ballesteros, I think he deserves probably a call up too. You might not find out what you need to, in the sense of let's say they struggle. Oh, they're still developing. Let's say they go on a hot streak. It could be Christopher Morel. He could be still developing. So, I don't necessarily know if we will get the answers that we need, because we could be fooled one way or another heading into next year. And that could be a problem for Jed or whoever too, as they're trying to look at who they need to make these additions to, because, let's say some of those guys are really good. Teams make adjustments heading into next season with the scouting report, and then they struggle off the bat, and you're like, oh shit, we didn't do enough to improve the ball club. But here we thought Ballesteros was our DH heading into 2025. So that could be tricky that way too. You don't gain anything from not letting them get the experience. They just
Agreed.
need the experience.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And if they help your team figure something out for next year, then great. That's what it's all about. But You just gotta let these guys play, man. We've been saying this for too long. Let the garlic bread play. I'm sick of fucking saying "let the garlic bread play" or whatever we said that one day. Yeah, it's like there's so much garlic bread as like nice appetizers. I'm gonna take a juicism here for a second. Like there's so much garlic bread around this team that's like solid pieces, but there's no pasta. There is no
there's no main course.
Yeah.
no steak.
Yeah.
Like-
Well, sorry to cut you off, Joey, but
No, you're good. You're good.
well, I keep cutting in and out, so I think I'm going to get. my
Hey,
proper
I'll tell you
send-off.
what. Before you sign off, Bobby, we were getting to the point. We've hit the 3-hour mark, so I'm going to do the sign off for us real quick. I want to again remind everybody: do listen to Cubs on Tap. We will have an episode tomorrow recapping the Cincinnati Reds series. Probably talk a little bit about some of the things that we talked about here tonight. First off, head over to the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You know the drill. You know when all of our great shows go live, like Cubs on Tap, like the Dingers guys who joined us here tonight over at the Dingers podcast. They were live last night. Check them out every Monday and or Tuesday. Sometimes they run on Tuesdays right here on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. Be sure to follow them at Dinger Cubs. Follow us at Cubbies on Tap. I'm at Loose on Tap. He's at Joey Knows Nothing. I'm backwards. He's at Silent Bob _2 making his debut. Bobby, you were a gem. We appreciate you joining, dude. We'll get you on before a couple more times here as the season rides out. This was a lot of fun chatting with you about it as well.
Thank you. I
But
appreciate
Juice,
it.
was fun.
follow Juice on
Yeah.
Tap. Follow Tyler Edmonds, Teddy Freddy 270, Nick _ on Tap, and Bulls Guy Rob, because Rob Wegley is a gem and we all love him here as well. You guys know the drill. Bulls vs. Blackhawks. I'm not going to get too overwinded. You guys are all sick of hearing me talk and bullshit. But ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet. Check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Boys, this was fun. Bobby, thank you for being a trooper, sir. Hanging out with me for about 98% of the duration of this live stream. Joey, we appreciate you joining us as well. We appreciate Mitch and Jake also for jumping in and out with us here tonight. It was a fun crew. It was a different crew for the watch along, but nonetheless, we had a great time. Cubs lose again, though. You know, naturally, our record smells like shit at this point. Let's be brutally honest. They don't win games when we're on, but they're entertaining at least when we're on and bullshitting about them things. But again, we're back tomorrow for a Wednesday show, and then we'll be back after the weekend, after the Cardinals series, to talk about that one. We'll figure. Yes,
No.
Joey?
Go ahead, do the pleasantries. I got to tell you something after.
Okay. I was gonna say pleasantries are largely done, but
I don't know. I get distracted.
seven home games. 7 home games for the Cubs coming up, starting on Thursday. So after this Red series is over, again, we'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll be back with you Sunday. Those will be our next 2 shows. Until then, we'll figure out when the next live stream is as well. And what do you say? We get out of there the only way we know how.
Ron, I get to play bocce this weekend.
Bocce? Oh, you get to play bocce ball.
It's Festa Italiana. I get to play bocce this weekend.
Oh, we love that. So for anybody that hasn't seen that clip, fun fact, you can type in bocce ball on Google, and
It's crazy.
it's still like the most viral clip that you can find is Joey and I talking about the pronunciation of bocce versus bocce. Hilarious, by the way. It's one of my favorite clips that's ever come out of this show, to be brutally honest with you, because it was just fun for me to bust Joey's balls for the rest of the show about it, which that was probably my favorite part, truthfully. But yeah, man, we
fun,
love
though.
that. I hope the bocce gods are in your favor. I know those backyards are killer, especially the old guys who know all the bumps and the divots in the yard. So I hope that works in your favor.
Hey, no
bro.
backyards, man. We got courts.
Oh, hey, then there you go. Then you
But-
got nothing to worry about.
But I will say I'm not usually a fan of the courts that they do have, but I know I'm not calling anybody out. It's tough. It's at a festa. You put the courts together. You know what I mean?
So
it's not like
there's
it's
the
like-
little nicks and knacks, and it's not perfect. And
It's not perfect. Yeah, it's not their
That's fair.
fault.
That's fair.
But if you're in the Rockford area this weekend, that's for anybody. But Ron, anybody, you guys check it out. I'll be there pretty much all weekend. So fun time. It's a fun time.
Beautiful.
Great food. And it's bocce and not bocce. And it'll be fun.
It will. Well, good for you, man. I hope it's a successful weekend. FTR in this case, because fuck the Reds. As always, FTC,
Yeah.
especially because the Cubs open up with them for a 4-game set starting on Thursday. And boys, let's go Cubbies.
Let's go Cubbies.
Go Cubs.